The desert eats good men first. Eldridge Sample is about to find out who served the meal. California Widow. A Wild West Thriller. Chapter 1. The salt flat didn't look like land. It looked like a bone that had been picked clean by the sun and left to bleach for 1,000 years. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse right down the middle of it. The ground was hard, crusted white, crunching under the iron shoes with a sound like breaking sugar. There was no trail here, just a direction, west. West, toward the mountains that hung on the horizon like purple clouds that never moved. "Hot," Eldridge said. The bay didn't answer. It just kept walking, head bobbing in a rhythmic trance, eyes half closed against the glare. The horse knew the drill. 1 foot in front of the other until the water came. Eldridge shifted in the saddle. He felt the weight of the money belt under his shirt. $500 in gold eagles. It was a heavy load, but it sat better than the lead he used to carry. He had earned it the hard way, pulling a rich girl out of a hole she dug for herself, and now he was spending it the easy way, riding away from the noise. He took his hat off. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. The air was dry, sucking the moisture right out of his skin before it could beat up. "Good country for lizards," Eldridge said. "Bad country for people." He scanned the horizon. The heat waves were dancing, turning the distant mountains into liquid. It was a trick the desert played, making solid things look soft and wet things look dry. You couldn't trust your eyes out here. You had to trust your gut. And his gut said something was wrong. He saw a speck. It was black against the blinding white. It wasn't moving. Rock, Eldridge guessed. He rode on. The speck didn't shimmer like a rock should. It had sharp edges. It cast a shadow. Bush, he corrected. He rode another mile. The speck grew. It separated into 2 distinct shapes. A large lump and a smaller lump on top of it. "Horse and rider," Eldridge said. He checked the Winchester in the scabbard. He loosened the thong on his colt. In the middle of a salt flat, a rider sitting still meant one of 2 things, an ambush or a corpse. He pulled the bay to the right, circling wide. He wanted to see the flank. He wanted to see if the rider turned to track him. The rider didn't move. The horse didn't lift its head. Eldridge closed the distance. He kept his hand on his thigh, near the gun. It was a roan mare. Lathered, dry. Head down, nose almost touching the salt. The animal's ribs were heaving in short, shallow gasps. The rider was a woman. She sat bolt upright in the saddle, rigid as a fence post. She wore a dress of heavy gray wool, buttoned to the neck, suitable for a church social in Ohio, but a death sentence in the Mojave. Her hat was gone. Her hair, the color of dried wheat, hung loose around her face, matted with dust. She held the reins in one hand. Her other hand rested on the saddle horn, gripping it so tight her knuckles were white. She didn't look at him. She stared straight ahead at the mountains that were 50 miles away. "Ma'am," Eldridge called out. His voice scratched his throat. She didn't blink. She didn't turn. She's dead, Eldridge thought. Dried out and stuck in the saddle. He rode closer. He stopped 10 feet away. The roan mare rolled a white eye at him, but didn't have the strength to shy away. Eldridge dismounted. His boots crunched on the salt. He walked to the woman's stirrup. He reached up and touched her arm. "Ma'am." She jerked. It was a small movement, a spasm, but she turned her head. Her eyes found him. They were blue, rimmed with red dust, and they looked through him like he was made of glass. "Caleb?" she whispered. Her voice was a dry husk. "No," Eldridge said. "Name's Sample." She blinked. The recognition faded, replaced by confusion. She licked her lips. Her tongue was swollen, dry. "Water," she said. Eldridge unhooked his canteen from the saddle. It was canvas-wrapped, soaked to keep the contents cool by evaporation. It felt heavy. Good heavy. "Easy," Eldridge said. "Don't gulp." He uncorked it. He held it up. She reached for it with both hands. She grabbed it like it was a gold bar. She tried to lift it to her mouth, but her arms shook. Eldridge held it for her. He tilted it. "Slow," he warned. She didn't listen. She drank. Water spilled down her chin, cutting tracks through the dust on her neck. She choked, coughed, and drank again. "That's enough," Eldridge said. He pulled the canteen away. "More," she rasped. She reached for it, her fingers clawing at the air. "You drink too fast, you'll throw it up," Eldridge said. "Wait a minute. Let it settle." He capped the canteen. He looked at the horse. The roan was done. Its legs were trembling. "Your horse needs water too," Eldridge said. "But I don't have enough for both of you." She's a good horse," the woman whispered. She just stopped. She wouldn't go. "She stopped because she didn't want to die," Eldridge said. He walked to his bay. He poured a little water into his hat, just a cupful. He walked to the roan. "Here," he said. The mare smelled the water. She lifted her head. She slurped the water from the hat, licking the felt dry. "That's all I can spare," Eldridge told the animal. He walked back to the woman. She was slumping now, the rigid posture gone. The water had woken her up enough to realize how tired she was. "You alone?" Eldridge asked. She nodded. "Alone. Where's your wagon?" "No wagon," she said. "Just the horse. And the saddlebags." "You rode into the salt flat alone. With one canteen?" He pointed to the empty metal flask hanging from her saddle. "I had to," she said. "I dropped one. Yesterday. Or the day before." Eldridge looked at the trail behind her. It was a straight line of hoof prints leading back into the shimmering nothingness. She hadn't wandered. She had ridden a straight line toward a landmark she couldn't reach. "You're lucky I came along," Eldridge said. "Another hour, you'd be buzzard meat." "I'm not lucky," she said. She looked at him, her eyes focusing. "I'm looking." "Looking for what?" "Shade." "My husband," she said. "Caleb." Eldridge looked around the vast, empty white plain. There wasn't a bush big enough to hide a jackrabbit, let alone a husband. "He ain't here," Eldridge said. "He went ahead," she said. "He wrote me. He said he found a spot. He said come west." "West is a big place, lady. You got a map." "I have a letter," she said. She touched her pocket. Eldridge took his hat off. He wiped the sweatband. "We can't stay here," Eldridge said. "The sun is cooking us. My horse can carry double, but we have to leave yours." "Leave her?" She looked at the roan. "I can't leave her." "She can't walk," Eldridge said. "Not with weight. We leave her, maybe she follows. Maybe she finds a way. You stay on her, you both die." She looked at the mare. She patted the neck. "She's named Bess," she said. "Bess is tired," Eldridge said. "Get down." She tried to dismount. Her legs buckled when she hit the salt. Eldridge caught her. She was light, nothing but bone and wool dress. "I got you," he said. He walked her to his bay. He boosted her up. She sat sideways behind the saddle, holding onto his belt. "My saddlebags," she said. "My things." Eldridge walked back to the roan. He pulled the saddlebags off. They were light. He threw them over the bay's neck. He looked at the roan mare. The horse watched him with dull eyes. "Sorry, girl," Eldridge said. He mounted the bay. He felt the woman's arms go around his waist. Her grip was weak. "We heading for Needles?" Eldridge asked. "It's the closest water." "I don't know where Needles is," she said. "I'm heading for Caleb." "We'll find Caleb," Eldridge lied. "But first we find shade." He kicked the bay. They moved out. The salt crunched. Eldridge looked back once. The roan mare was standing where they left her, a dark statue on a white sea. She watched them go. Then she lowered her head and started to walk. Following. "Stubborn," Eldridge said. "She's a Vance horse," the woman said against his back. "We don't quit." "Vance," Eldridge said. "That your name?" "Nora," she said. "Nora Vance." "Well, Nora Vance," Eldridge said. "Try not to fall off. I'm expensive to hire." "I didn't hire you." "You drank my water," Eldridge said. "That puts you on the tab." They rode west, two figures on one horse, moving slow across the anvil of the sun, leaving a trail that the wind would erase by sundown. Chapter 2. The bay horse didn't like the extra weight. It plodded through the salt crust, head low, blowing hard through nostrils caked with white dust. The heat coming off the ground was a physical thing, a hammer that struck from below while the sun struck from above. Eldridge Sample shifted in the saddle. Nora Vance was a warm, heavy presence against his back, her arms wrapped around his waist tight enough to wrinkle his shirt. "Needles is north," Eldridge said over his shoulder. "About 10 miles. They got water. And a telegraph office if you want to wire home." "I'm not going to Needles," Nora said. Her voice was stronger now, the water doing its work. It was flat, Midwestern, and stubborn. "You're going where the horse goes," Eldridge said. "And the horse needs water. Needles is the only wet spot on the map." "Caleb went west," she said. "Toward the Old Woman Mountains. He said the rock looked promising." "When?" 3 months ago." Eldridge pulled the bay up. He turned in the saddle to look at her. Her face was streaked with dirt, her lips cracked and bleeding, but her eyes were clear. They were the kind of eyes that looked at a problem and didn't see the size of it, only the necessity. 3 months, Eldridge said. "Lady, in this country, 3 months is a lifetime. A man alone, he runs out of water in 3 days. He runs out of luck in 2. He had a mule," she said. "And supplies. He knows how to survive. He built our house in Ohio with his own hands." "Building a house in Ohio ain't the same as finding water in the Mojave." "He wrote me," she said. She reached into her pocket again. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn soft at the creases. "He sent this from the trading post at Fenner. He said he found a sign. He said he was going to verify it and then send for me." "And then?" "Then nothing," she said. The letters stopped. "So you got on a horse and rode into the oven." "I came to find him." Eldridge looked at the paper in her hand. It was just a prop now. A wish. "Look," Eldridge said. "I'm not a guide. I'm just a man crossing the flats. I'll take you to Needles. You can hire a search party. You can buy a wagon." "I don't have money for a search party," she said. "I spent it on the horse. And the ticket to the railhead." "Then you go home." "No." She slid off the back of the horse. She landed on the salt, her legs wobbling, but she locked her knees and stood. "I am not going to Needles," she said. "If you won't take me west, I'll walk." Eldridge stared at her. The sun was beating down on her wool dress. She was dehydrated, exhausted, and broke. But she stood there like she was guarding a bank vault. "You'll die," Eldridge said. "Before sundown." Then I'll die looking, she said. She turned and started walking. She didn't look back. She just started trudging through the salt, heading toward the shimmering mountains in the distance. Eldridge watched her. He watched the way she dragged her feet. He watched the way her shoulders were set. Stubborn, he said to the horse. The bay lowered its head, looking at the salt as if asking why they weren't moving toward the water. Eldridge swore softly. It was a long string of words that involved mules, bad luck, and women from Ohio. He kicked the horse. He rode after her. He pulled up beside her. Get on, Eldridge said. She kept walking. You're going to Needles. I'm going crazy, Eldridge said. Get on the damn horse. She stopped. She looked up at him. You'll take me to the mountains? She asked. I'll take you as far as the Foothills, Eldridge said. We find water. We rest the horse. Then we talk about Caleb. We find him, she corrected. We look for him, Eldridge said. That's the deal. I don't promise findings. I just promise lookings. She hesitated. She was weighing his word against the vast emptiness around her. Deal, she said. He reached down. He hauled her up behind him again. She was lighter this time, or maybe he was just getting used to the burden. Which way? Eldridge asked. He said follow the spine, she said. The ridge that looks like a sleeping dog. Eldridge scanned the horizon. He saw the ridge. It didn't look like a dog to him. It looked like a jagged set of teeth, waiting to chew up anyone foolish enough to climb it. That's 20 miles, Eldridge said. We can make it. Maybe, Eldridge said. If the horse doesn't quit. He turned the bay toward the teeth. Tell me about him, Eldridge said. This Caleb. Why? Because, if I'm going to hunt a ghost, I want to know what he looks like. He isn't a ghost, she said sharply. He's a man. He's tall. Has a beard. He laughs loud. That helps, Eldridge said dryly. Tall man with a beard. That narrows it down to half the territory. He's a good man, she said. Her voice softened. He isn't like the men out here. He doesn't carry a gun on his hip. He doesn't drink whiskey. He works hard. Good men die fast out here, Mrs. Vance. Not Caleb. He has faith. Faith don't fill a canteen. It fills a man, she said. Eldridge didn't argue. He knew better. He knew that the desert didn't care about faith or goodness or how hard a man worked in Ohio. The desert only cared about arithmetic. How much water you had, minus how much you sweat. But he didn't tell her that. She was riding on hope, and hope was lighter than water. We'll see, Eldridge said. He kept the horse moving. The salt crunched. The sun crawled across the sky, indifferent to the two specks moving across its anvil. They were heading away from safety, away from the telegraph, away from the water. They were heading into the silence where Caleb Vance had disappeared 3 months ago. And Eldridge had a bad feeling that the only thing that they were going to find was the arithmetic. Chapter 3. The bay horse was doing the work of 2 animals, carrying a load that shifted every time the terrain dipped. Eldridge Sample felt Nora Vance's weight against his back, a constant warm pressure that reminded him with every step that he wasn't just burning daylight, he was burning his own survival margins. They had left the salt flat behind, trading the crushing white hardpan for a rocky incline that led toward the jagged teeth of the mountains. The ground here was treacherous, littered with loose shale and scrub brush that looked like it had died fighting for water 100 years ago. He's a carpenter, Nora said. She hadn't spoken for a mile. She just blurted it out, like she was trying to convince herself as much as him. Eldridge kept his eyes on the trail, watching for snake holes. Carpenters usually stay where the wood is, Eldridge said. Not much timber out here. Just creosote and cactus. He builds things, she said. Furniture. Houses. He built a cradle for his sister's baby that was so fine the mayor of Columbus tried to buy it. Ohio, Eldridge said. Yes. Ohio. It's green there. I've heard. He didn't want to leave, she said. But the panic hit. The bank took the shop. He said a man can't build a future with tools he doesn't own. Eldridge adjusted his hat against the glare. The sun was sliding down the western sky, but it hadn't lost its bite. It hung there, staring at them. So he bought a pickaxe, Eldridge said. Traded a hammer for a shovel. That's a bad trade. He wants to find enough to start over, she said. Just a stake. He isn't greedy. He isn't like those men in the papers who want mansions and gold watches. He just wants a shop and a front porch. The ground doesn't care what you want, Eldridge said. It just cares how deep you dig. And usually, you dig your own hole. The horse stumbled. Eldridge pulled up on the reins, steadying the animal. It blew hard, shaking its head. We rest, Eldridge said. He slid out of the saddle. His legs were stiff. He reached up and helped Nora down. She hit the ground and swayed, grabbing the stirrup leather. Her face was gray with dust, her lips cracked, but she stood. Eldridge loosened the cinch. He lifted the stirrup to check the girth. The horse was sweating white lather, foaming where the leather rubbed. He's carrying heavy, Eldridge said. We walk for a bit. Give him a break. I can walk, Nora said. She started forward. She didn't have walking boots. She had town boots, thin leather with buttons. They slipped on the shale. Eldridge walked beside the horse. He looked at her. Tell me about this good man, Eldridge said. Besides the cradle. He's kind, she said. He doesn't raise his voice. He reads the Bible every night. Does he carry a gun? No, she said. He hates violence. Eldridge stopped. He looked at her over the saddle seat. He rode into the Mojave without a gun. He has a knife, she said defensively, for camp chores, and a rifle for hunting. But he doesn't carry a pistol. He says pistols are for men who are looking for trouble. Eldridge patted the Colt on his hip. Pistols are for men who find trouble without looking for it. Caleb isn't like you, she said. She looked at his gun, then at his face. He trusts people. He says if you treat a man fair, he'll treat you fair. Eldridge laughed. It was a short, dry sound, like a boot snapping a twig. Lady, Eldridge said. If he rode out here trusting people, he didn't make it to the mountains. He made it to the first camp where someone saw his mule and decided they needed it more than he did. You're cynical. I'm alive, Eldridge said. There's a correlation. He took a drink from the canteen. He offered it to her. She took a sip, disciplined this time. You don't think he's out there, she said. I think the desert eats good men first, Eldridge said. The bad ones, they got a sour taste. The desert spits them out. But a man who trusts people? A man who doesn't carry a gun because he thinks the world is polite. That's lunch. He's smart, she insisted. He can figure things out. He figured out the irrigation for our garden when the creek went dry. Irrigation ain't the same as finding a spring in alkali country. He wrote me, she said. He said he found a likely spot. Prospectors always find a likely spot. It's the finding gold part that trips them up. She glared at him. Why are you helping me if you think he's dead? I didn't say he was dead, Eldridge said. I said he was lost. Or broke. Or walking home without his boots. He looked at the ridge ahead. The teeth she had described. It was a wall of rock, formidable and steep. If he went that way, Eldridge said, pointing to the gap, he picked a hard road. That pass, it looks flat from 20 miles back. Up close, it's a box canyon waiting to happen. That's where he went, she said. He drew a map. Let me see it. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out the letter again. She unfolded it carefully. On the back, sketched in pencil, was a crude map. A line for the trail. A lump for a rock. And a jagged line for the mountains. An arrow pointed to a V shape in the ridge. Eldridge looked at it. It's a sketch, he said. Not a survey. He drew this from memory. He drew it from the trading post, she said. Before he left. So he was guessing, Eldridge said. He looked at the horizon, saw a gap, and said, that's the spot. He felt it, she said. He said he had a feeling. Feelings get you killed, Eldridge said. He handed the paper back. Maps get you there. Water gets you back. He tightened the cinch. Get on, he said. We're walking. The horse has blown. We ride. We cover ground. If we're going to find a sign before dark, we have to move. She climbed up. She was getting better at it, finding the rhythm of the mount. They rode on. The sun dipped lower, casting the world in a bruised purple light. Eldridge thought about Caleb Vance. The carpenter. The Bible reader. The man who didn't carry a pistol. He pictured him. A soft man. Hands calloused from wood, not rope. A man who looked at a rock and saw a foundation, not a weapon. He sounds like a saint, Eldridge said over his shoulder. He tries to be. Saints make bad pioneers, Mrs. Vance. Pioneers have to be willing to do things saints won't. Like what? Like shoot a man for his water, Eldridge said. Or eat a mule because you ran out of beans. Caleb would never eat his mule. He named it Barnaby. Barnaby, Eldridge shook his head. You name it, you can't eat it. That's rule number 1. He loves animals. I love animals too, Eldridge said. Especially with gravy. She didn't laugh. She tightened her grip on his waist. He's out there, she whispered. I know it. We'll see. Eldridge scanned the ground. They were off the salt now, riding on hard-packed gravel. Tracks didn't hold well here. The wind scoured them away in an hour. But a man leading a mule, that left a mark. A drag. A scuff. He looked for it. He looked for anything that didn't belong. If he's such a good man, Eldridge said, why did he leave you alone for 3 months? Why didn't he send for you sooner? He wanted it to be ready, she said. He didn't want me to live in a tent. He wanted to build a cabin. With a floor. Pride, Eldridge said. Love. Pride, he repeated. He didn't want you to see him sweating in the dirt. He wanted to present you with the finished product. Like the cradle. Is that wrong? It's dangerous, Eldridge said. Because if he fails, if he doesn't find the gold, he can't come back. He can't look you in the eye. So he stays out there. He pushes it. He takes risks he shouldn't take. He would come back, she said. He promised. Promises are easy in Ohio, Eldridge said. Out here, they dry up. He stopped the horse. What is it? She asked. Look, he said. He pointed to a cluster of rocks, about 50 yards off the line they were riding. It wasn't much. Just a pile of stones. But they were stacked. Nature didn't stack stones in a pyramid. A cairn, Eldridge said. He made it, she said. Her voice jumped. He made it for me. To show the way. Maybe, Eldridge said. Or maybe a surveyor made it 5 years ago. Or maybe a Navajo made it to mark water. It's him, she said. Go. Eldridge turned the bay toward the rocks. We check it, he said. But don't get your hopes up. It's just a pile of rocks. It's a sign, she said. Eldridge looked at the cairn. It sat there, silent and stupid in the dying light. It was the only thing in 10 miles that looked like a human hand had touched it. If Caleb Vance built it, he was alive. Or he was alive when he built it. And if he built it, he was heading into the teeth of the mountains with a mule named Barnaby, and a conscience that was too heavy to carry. Good men, Eldridge muttered. Always making it hard on the rest of us. He rode toward the stones, hoping for a note, but expecting nothing but the empty space where a good man used to be. Chapter 4. The pile of stones wasn't just a pile. It was a monument to geometry in a land that preferred chaos. Eldridge Sample reined in the bay horse 10 feet from the marker. He sat for a moment, letting the dust settle, looking at the way the rocks were stacked. They weren't thrown together. They were fitted. Flat sides facing out, interlocking like bricks in a chimney. It stood 3 feet high, a perfect pyramid casting a sharp, triangular shadow across the gravel. He built it, Nora Vance said. She slid off the horse before Eldridge could offer a hand. She hit the ground running, stumbling a little in her town boots, and fell to her knees at the base of the cairn. Caleb, she whispered. She began pulling the stones apart. She didn't just toss them. She dismantled the structure with frantic hands, looking for the hollow center, the tin can, the folded paper. Eldridge watched her. He watched the way her hands shook. He watched the hope in her shoulders, a fragile thing that was about to get kicked. She reached the bottom. She swept the dirt away. Nothing. Just bare earth. No note. No map. No sign that Caleb Vance had ever been there, except for the stones themselves. Nora sat back on her heels. She stared at the dirt. It's empty, she said. Her voice was flat, hollowed out by the heat. It's a marker, Eldridge said. Not a mailbox. He would have left a note. He always leaves a note. When he goes to the store. When he goes to the mill. This isn't the store, Eldridge said. And maybe he didn't have paper. Or a pencil. He has a notebook, she insisted. He carries it in his vest pocket. To write down dimensions. Eldridge dismounted. He walked to the pile of scattered stones. He picked one up. It was heavy, volcanic basalt. Look at the fit, Eldridge said. He took time here. A man who's scared, a man who's dying of thirst, he throws rocks together to make a shape. He doesn't build a wall. He tossed the rock back. He was calm, Eldridge said. When he was here, he was thinking. Thinking about what? About where to go next. Eldridge stood up. He turned his back on the cairn. He looked out at the landscape. They were miles off the main trail now, standing on a shelf of hardpan that rose gradually toward the mountains. To the west, the peaks were jagged, formidable walls of stone that looked impossible to climb without wings. To the south, the salt flat shimmered in the heat haze. But to the north. Eldridge squinted. He pulled his hat brim lower. To the north, 2 peaks separated. It wasn't a wide valley, just a dip in the ridgeline. A saddle. From here, 20 miles away, it looked smooth. Inviting. It looked like a door that had been left open. Come here, Eldridge said. Nora stood up. She wiped her dirty hands on her skirt. She walked over to him. "What do you see?" she asked. "Stand right here," Eldridge said. Where he stood, after he built the pile. She stepped into his spot. "Look north," Eldridge said. "At the gap." She looked. "I see mountains." "You see a low spot," Eldridge said. "You see a pass." "So, put yourself in his boots," Eldridge said. "You're a carpenter. You like things level. You like things straight. You're out here, alone. Maybe the mule is acting up. Maybe you're not finding the color you expected." He pointed a gloved finger at the gap. "You look at those jagged peaks to the west, and they look like work," Eldridge said. "Hard work. You look north, and you see that saddle. It looks flat. It looks like a way through. Is it?" "No," Eldridge said. "It's a lie. That's deceptive country. From here, it looks like a gentle slope. Get closer, and it's box canyons and drop-offs. But a man from Ohio, he doesn't know that. He sees a straight line." Nora looked at the gap. She looked at it for a long time. "He likes easy grades," she whispered. "He says there's no sense fighting gravity if you don't have to." "That's the carpenter talking," Eldridge said. "Not the prospector." He walked back to the bay horse. He checked the water in the canteen. It was getting light. They had enough for maybe one more day if they were careful. "He went north," Eldridge said. "How do you know?" "It's a guess. Tracking isn't just looking at footprints, Mrs. Vance. The wind blows footprints away. Tracking is looking at the man, figuring out what he wanted, what he was afraid of. Caleb isn't afraid. Everyone is afraid out here," Eldridge said. "The smart ones admit it. The dead ones don't." He tightened the cinch. "He built this cairn to mark the turn," Eldridge said. He was leaving the flat. He was heading for the high country. He wanted to be able to find his way back if it didn't pan out. "Or he wanted me to find him," she said. "Maybe." Eldridge swung into the saddle. The leather creaked. "Get on," he said. Nora looked at the scattered stones. She bent down. She picked one up. A small, smooth black rock. She put it in her pocket. She walked to the horse. Eldridge reached down and pulled her up. "It's going to get rougher," Eldridge said. "We leave the hardpan now. We get into the broken ground." "I don't care about rough," she said. "I just care about direction." "North," Eldridge said. "Toward the lie." He turned the horse. They rode away from the cairn. The sun was dropping fast now, turning the sky into a bruised purple sheet. The temperature began to plummet, the desert shedding its heat like a snake shedding skin. Eldridge kept the pace steady. He watched the ground. He was looking for confirmation. A scratch on a rock. A turned stone. Anything that said a shod mule had passed this way 3 months ago. Why didn't he stay on the trail? Nora asked against his back. If he was just looking. "Men don't find gold on the trail," Eldridge said. "If it was on the trail, someone else would have found it. You have to go where people aren't." "He wanted to be alone," she said. "He wrote that. He said the camps were too loud, too full of drinking and gambling." "Solitude is expensive," Eldridge said. "He could afford it." "I don't mean money." They rode for an hour. The light failed. The mountains ahead turned into black silhouettes against the stars. Eldridge felt the horse stumble. Just a little. A misstep on loose shale. "That's it," Eldridge said. He pulled up. "Why are we stopping?" "Can't see the ground," Eldridge said. "Horse breaks a leg, we walk. We walk, we die." He slid down. He helped her down. We camp here, Eldridge said. Cold camp. No fire. Why no fire? It's freezing. Fire needs wood, Eldridge said. I don't see any trees. Do you? She looked around. Just rock and scrub brush that was more thorn than timber. We huddle, Eldridge said. He stripped the saddle. He used the blanket to rub the horse down. The animal was the priority. Without the horse, the arithmetic of survival went to zero fast. He laid the saddle on the ground next to a low bush. He spread the saddle blanket. Sit, he said. Nora sat. She wrapped her arms around herself. Her teeth chattered. The desert night was a shock after the day's oven. Eldridge sat next to her. He didn't touch her. He just offered his coat. Take it, he said. You'll freeze. I've been cold before, Eldridge said. I'm used to it. She took the coat. It smelled of tobacco and horse and gun oil. She put it on. It swallowed her. What if we're wrong? She asked. What if he didn't go north? Then we ride back to the trail tomorrow, Eldridge said. We go to Needles. We tell the sheriff a man got lost. He's not lost, she said fiercely. He knows exactly where he is. Knowing where you are doesn't help if you can't get out, Eldridge said. He lay back against his saddle. He looked at the stars. They were bright, cold, indifferent. He thought about the cairn, the fitted stones. It bothered him. A man who took the time to fit stones together was a man who wasn't in a hurry, a man who wasn't panicked. But he was also a man who was wasting time. Why build it? Eldridge whispered. What? Why build the marker? If he was just scouting? Why not just pile 3 rocks and keep moving? He takes pride in his work, Nora said. He doesn't do things halfway. Pride, Eldridge said. He closed his eyes. Pride kills you out here, Mrs. Vance. You stop to make things pretty, the sun catches you. You worry about straight lines. You miss the water hole because it's crooked. He's a good man, she said again. Like it was a shield. I know, Eldridge said. You told me. He listened to the wind. He listened to the horse cropping at a patch of dry grass. He had a bad feeling about the gap in the mountains. It looked too easy. And in the West, easy was usually the bait in the trap. Go to sleep, Eldridge said. Tomorrow we find out if your husband was smart or just neat. Nora didn't answer. She huddled in his coat, staring north, willing the darkness to give up its secrets. But the darkness just stared back, cold and empty, holding onto the good man like a miser holding onto a coin. Chapter 5. The sun didn't rise so much as it cracked the horizon open like an egg, spilling raw yellow light across the basin. Eldridge Sample tightened the cinch on the bay horse. The animal blew out, expanding its ribs against the leather, unhappy about another day of carrying double weight on half rations of water. Quit complaining, Eldridge said. He patted the neck. We find water today, or we walk back. Nora Vance stood by a greasewood bush, shivering in the dawn chill. She had slept in his coat, curled up like a pillbug, but the desert cold had a way of seeping into the marrow. She looked at the gap in the mountains to the north. The Easy Pass. From here, in the flat light of morning, it looked jagged. Less like a door, and more like a tear in the rock. It looks steeper, she said. Perspective, Eldridge said. Things look different when you have to climb them. He mounted up. He reached down. Up, he said. She took his hand. She was getting used to the rhythm now. Swing, step, settle. She wrapped her arms around his waist. We follow the wash, Eldridge said. The ground is softer. They rode north. They left the cairn and the memory of the salt flat behind. The terrain shifted immediately. The smooth hardpan gave way to broken ground, a jumble of alluvial fans spreading out from the base of the mountains like spilled gravel. The bay picked its way through. The iron shoes clinked against stones. Eldridge kept his eyes on the ground. He wasn't looking at the view. He was looking for a scratch, a scuff, a sign that a mule had passed this way 3 months ago. "Stop," Eldridge said. He pulled up. He slid down. He handed the reins to Nora. "Hold him." He walked to a slab of granite that jutted out of the earth like a broken tooth. He knelt. "What is it?" Nora asked. "Iron," Eldridge said. He touched a white scar on the gray stone. It was a fresh gouge, maybe 2 inches long. The edges were still sharp, not weathered down by the wind and sand. "Iron shoe," Eldridge said. "Hit the rock hard." The animal slipped. "Caleb." "Caleb's mule," Eldridge said. "Barnaby." Horses place their feet. Mules, sometimes they drag them if they're loaded heavy. He looked at the direction of the scrape. It pointed north, but slightly east. "He came this way," Eldridge said. "Your cairn wasn't a lie." "I told you." "You hoped," Eldridge corrected. "Now we know." He mounted again. They pushed on. The trail didn't straighten out. It meandered. It wove through the brush, turning left, then right, looping back on itself. "Why is he doing that?" Nora asked, after an hour. "The pass is straight ahead. He's zigzagging." "He isn't traveling," Eldridge said. "He's working." "Working." "Prospecting." A man traveling looks at the horizon. He picks a landmark and rides for it. A man prospecting looks at his feet. He looks at the quartz veins. He looks at the color of the dirt. Eldridge steered the bay to the right, following a faint line of crushed sagebrush. "See this?" Eldridge pointed to a shallow dry wash that cut across their path. He rode down into the bottom here, followed it for 50 yards, then rode back out. "Why?" "Looking for float," Eldridge said. "Gold washes down. You find a piece in the wash, you follow it up to the vein." He was checking the drain. "Did he find anything?" "He rode out," Eldridge said. "So probably not." They climbed higher. The air grew thinner, hot and dry. The scrub brush turned to twisted juniper and chala cactus that threw long, spiky shadows. The horse stumbled. Eldridge pulled up. "We walk," he said. They dismounted. Eldridge led the horse. Nora walked behind, holding onto the tail of the bay to help pull herself up the incline. Her boots were sliding on the loose shale. "He was thorough," Eldridge said, watching the tracks. "He checked every outcrop, every ledge." "He's a careful man," Nora said, breathless. "He's a desperate man," Eldridge said. "He was burning daylight and water to check rocks that anybody else would have ridden past. He wasn't just looking for a claim. He was looking for a miracle." "He needed it," she said. "We lost everything. The house. The shop." "Desperation makes you slow," Eldridge said. "It makes you wander." He stopped at a ridgeline. He looked back. The trail of Caleb Vance wasn't a line, it was a scribble. A chaotic, wandering path that wasted miles and energy. He wasn't acting like a man who knew where he was going, Eldridge said. He was acting like a man who didn't want to go back. Nora stood beside him. She was flushed, sweating. She looked at the erratic path below them. "He was trying," she said softly. "He was trying so hard." "Trying kills you out here," Eldridge said. "Knowing saves you." He pointed ahead. The gap in the mountains was closer now. It loomed above them, steep walls of red rock narrowing into a throat. "The pass," Eldridge said. "It chokes down up there." If he went through, he had to go single file. "Is that bad?" "It's good for tracking," Eldridge said. "Bad for ambush. But nobody ambushes a carpenter with a mule." He checked the sun. High noon. "We rest," Eldridge said. "Under that overhang. 10 minutes. No more." They sat in the shade of a sandstone ledge. Eldridge gave the horse a hatful of water. He gave Nora a sip. He took one himself. The water was warm, tasting of canvas. "You read the ground like a book," Nora said. "The ground doesn't lie," Eldridge said. "People lie. They say they're going to San Francisco, and they go to Texas. They say they have money, and they have debt. The ground just says he walked here." "What does the ground say about Caleb now?" Eldridge looked at the wandering tracks leading up to the pass. "It says he was getting tired," Eldridge said. "See the spacing? The steps get shorter. He was walking, leading the mule. Saving the animal. He's kind." "He's heavy," Eldridge said. "Or the mule is. Maybe loaded down with samples. Rocks. Fool's gold. Or real gold. Maybe." Eldridge stood up. He offered her a hand. "Up," he said. "The gap is waiting." They climbed. The shale turned to solid rock. The footing got better, but the angle got steeper. They reached the mouth of the pass. It was a narrow cut, shadowed and cool. The wind funneled through it with a low moan. Eldridge stopped. He knelt. He touched a rock. "Here," he said. There was a mark on the stone. A blue streak. "Lead?" Nora asked. "Lead," Eldridge said. "From a bullet." He looked around. He found a brass casing wedged in a crack in the stone. A rifle casing. .44 caliber. He picked it up. He sniffed it. Old. No smell of powder. But the brass wasn't tarnished black yet. 3 months? Nora asked. Her voice tight. "Maybe," Eldridge said. "Weather preserves things up here." Did he shoot something? Or someone shot at him? Eldridge pocketed the brass. "Or," Eldridge said, looking at the wandering tracks that finally straightened out as they entered the pass, he was shooting at a snake. Or a shadow. Caleb doesn't shoot at shadows. "A man alone for a month shoots at anything that moves," Eldridge said. "Solitude makes you jumpy." He looked through the pass. It opened up on the other side into a high valley. A bowl of green scrub and rock. He went through, Eldridge said. He stopped looking at the rocks and started riding. Straight line. "Why?" "Because he saw something," Eldridge said. "Or met someone." "Someone?" "Tracks change," Eldridge said. "Look." He pointed to the dust in the lee of a boulder. There were the mule tracks. The shod hooves. And next to them, faint but there, another set. A horse. Unshod. An Indian pony. No. Just a horse that had thrown a shoe and kept going. He wasn't alone here, Eldridge said. He picked up company. "Who?" "I don't know," Eldridge said. But whoever it was, they stopped wandering. They rode together. North. "A friend?" Nora asked, hopeful. "Out here," Eldridge said, "a friend is just a man who hasn't shot you yet." He mounted the bay. "Let's go meet the company," Eldridge said. They rode into the pass, leaving the wandering behind, following the straight line that led toward the high country and the second set of tracks. Chapter 6. The pass opened up into a high bowl of granite and scrub cedar, a place where the wind got trapped and swirled around looking for a way out. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse into the lee of a massive overhang rock that looked like a wave of stone frozen just before it crashed. The air here was thinner, sharper, smelling of pine resin and old dust. "There," Eldridge said. He didn't point. He just stopped the horse and nodded his head toward the base of the rock wall. Nora Vance leaned around him. She squinted against the glare of the high-altitude sun. "I don't see anything," she said. "That's the point," Eldridge said. He didn't leave a mess. He dismounted. His boots hit the ground with a solid thump. He reached up and helped Nora down. She was getting better at the landing, finding her feet before her knees buckled. "Stay here," Eldridge said. "Let me read it before we walk on it." He walked toward the rock overhang. The campsite was tucked into the deepest shadow. It wasn't just a place where a man had stopped to sleep. It was a construction site. The fire ring wasn't just rocks thrown together. It was a perfect circle of uniform stones, dug into the earth to shield the coals from the wind. The ash in the center was cold, compacted by rain and time, but it was centered. Next to the fire ring was a stack of wood. Not a pile. A stack. Sorted by size. Kindling on top, fuel logs on the bottom. Even the ends were aligned. "He likes straight lines," Eldridge said. He looked at the ground where the bedroll had been. It was swept clean. No rocks. No twigs. The impression in the dirt was rectangular, precise. Nora walked up behind him. She stood at the edge of the camp. She saw the fire ring. She saw the wood. "It's him," she whispered. "It's neat," Eldridge admitted. "Most men out here, they burn what they find and sleep where they drop. Your husband, he curated the dirt. He believes in order," she said. "He says if you keep your tools clean, the work takes care of itself. The desert isn't a workshop, Mrs. Vance. It's a demolition zone." Eldridge walked to the back of the overhang. He looked at the soot marks on the rock roof. "He stayed here 2 nights," Eldridge said. "Maybe 3. The smoke stains are layered." "Why?" "Waiting," Eldridge said. "Or working. Or just resting the mule." He looked at the ground again. He saw the mule tracks. They were tethered near a scrub oak. The bark was rubbed smooth but not stripped. The mule had been calm. Then he saw the other tracks. The unshod horse. It had been tied further out, away from the shelter. The ground there was churned up. The horse had paced. It had pawed the earth. "The company," Eldridge said. "The friend." "Where did he sleep?" Nora asked. Eldridge pointed to a spot 10 feet away from Caleb's neat rectangle. It was a mess. The brush was crushed. A tin can had been thrown into the bushes. A scorch mark showed where someone had dropped a live coal or a cigarette. "He slept messy," Eldridge said. "And he slept close. But not too close." "Who was he?" "Someone who didn't care about straight lines," Eldridge said. "Someone who let Caleb do the chores." Eldridge moved to the edge of the camp, where the rock wall met the scree slope. He was looking for trash. Men always left trash. He found it behind a boulder. It wasn't a can. It wasn't a paper wrapper. It was a boot. It was lying on its side, curled by the sun and rain, looking like a dead animal. The leather was cracked, gray with exposure. Eldridge picked it up. "What is that?" Nora asked. "A boot," Eldridge said. "Whose?" "Size 10, Eldridge said, reading the sole. "Heavy work boot. Eastern make. Not a riding heel. A walking heel." Nora stepped closer. She stared at the boot. She reached out a hand, then pulled it back. "That's Caleb's," she said. Her voice was thin. I bought them for him. In Cincinnati. Before we left. He left it behind, Eldridge said. Why? Eldridge turned the boot over. He showed her the sole. It wasn't just worn. It was gone. A hole the size of a silver dollar was worn through the leather, right at the ball of the foot. The inner sole was shredded. You could see the impression of the toes on the inside. He walked through it, Eldridge said. He has a mule, Nora said. Why was he walking? To save the animal, Eldridge said. Or because the mule was loaded too heavy to ride. He looked at the heel. It was worn down on the outside edge, almost to the nails. He walked a long way, Mrs. Vance. A man doesn't wear through a sole like that in a week. He walked from the railhead. He walked across the salt. He loves that mule, she said. Barnaby. He wouldn't ride him if he was tired. Or if he was carrying weight, Eldridge said. Samples. Rocks. Equipment. He dropped the boot. It hit the dirt with a hollow sound. He changed his shoes, Eldridge said. Here. He must have had a spare pair in his pack. He did, she said. He always carries spares. 2 is 1, 1 is none, he says. Smart, Eldridge said. But it tells a story. He walked back to the fire ring. He crouched. He sifted the cold ash through his fingers. He found a piece of charred bone. Small. Rabbit. Bird. He was eating light, Eldridge said. Scavenging. He wasn't opening cans. He was saving his supplies, she said. For the claim. Or he was out of money, Eldridge said. Or the partner was eating the rations. He looked at the messy sleeping spot again. He walked over to it. He found a cigarette butt crushed into the dirt. It was old, unraveled by the wind, but the paper was still visible. Your husband smoke? Eldridge asked. No. He hates it. The partner smoked, Eldridge said. Chain smoked. There's 3 of them here. He stood up. He scanned the canyon. So here's the picture, Eldridge said. Caleb arrives here. Tired. Walking. Leading a mule that's carrying everything he owns. He meets a man. A man on a horse with no shoes. A man who smokes and throws his trash in the bushes. And they camp together, Eldridge said. Caleb builds the fire. Caleb stacks the wood. The other man watches. They stay 2 days. Maybe waiting out a storm. Maybe talking. Talking about what? Gold, Eldridge said. What else is there to talk about up here? Caleb shows him the map. Or the samples. The other man listens. You think he's dangerous, Nora said. The other man. I think he's lazy, Eldridge said. Lazy men are dangerous when they get hungry. They don't like to work, but they like to eat. He walked back to the bay horse. He checked the canteen. Half full. We have to move, Eldridge said. The tracks leave the camp heading west. Straight up the slope. West. Nora looked at the jagged peaks. I thought he was going north. He changed his mind, Eldridge said. Or the partner changed it for him. The easy pass, it ends here. From here on, it's climbing. Is he okay? She asked. She was looking at the discarded boot. It looked lonely lying in the dust. He changed his boots, Eldridge said. That means he had fresh ones. He was still planning on walking. That's good, isn't it? It means he's stubborn, Eldridge said. Stubborn gets you up the mountain. It doesn't necessarily get you down. He mounted the bay. He held down his hand. Up, he said. She took his hand. She climbed up behind him. "Goodbye, Caleb," she whispered to the camp. "He's not there," Eldridge said. "Just his trash." He turned the horse. They rode out of the shelter of the overhang, back into the wind. Eldridge looked at the trail ahead. It was steep, narrow, winding through a field of boulders that looked like skulls. The boot bothered him. Not because it was worn, but because it was left. A careful man, a man who stacked his wood by size, he wouldn't just throw a boot behind a rock. He would mend it. Or he would keep it for leather scraps. Leaving it meant he was done with it. Or he was in a hurry. Or he was distracted, Eldridge thought, by the man smoking the cigarettes. "Hold on," Eldridge said. "It's going to get steep." He kicked the horse. They began the climb, following the ghosts of two men who walked together but didn't walk the same way. Chapter 7. The trail didn't climb so much as it clawed its way up the face of the mountain, fighting gravity for every inch of vertical gain. Eldridge Sample walked ahead of the bay horse. He had the reins looped over his shoulder, leaning his weight into the leather, acting as a counterweight to keep the animal moving. The horse's hooves scrambled on the slate, striking sparks that vanished as soon as they were born. Nora Vance rode with her hands gripping the mane. She wasn't sitting the saddle anymore. She was perched on it, shifting her weight constantly to keep the animal balanced. She didn't look at the view falling away behind them, a dizzying drop into the basin where the heat haze turned the world into soup. She looked at the rocks ahead. "It's getting narrow," she said. Her voice was thin, snatched away by the wind that howled through the gap. "It's a goat track," Eldridge said. "Not a mule trail." He stopped. He patted the bay's neck. The horse was wet, tremors running through its shoulders. "We rest," Eldridge said. "We just rested," Nora argued. "An hour ago." "The horse doesn't have a watch," Eldridge said. "He just has lungs. And right now, they're burning." He helped her down. She landed heavily, her legs stiff. She sat on a flat rock, pulling her skirt around her boots. Eldridge checked the animal. The shoes were holding, but the frogs were getting bruised by the sharp rock. He poured a capful of water into his hand and wiped the horse's muzzle. He turned to look back down the trail. It was a jagged line, weaving through the boulders. Empty. "He didn't come this way," Eldridge said. Nora looked up. Her face was flushed, windburned. "We saw the tracks. At the camp." "We saw tracks leaving the camp," Eldridge said. "Heading west. But they didn't come up. Not this high." He pointed to a split in the trail about a mile back, a faint game trail that cut across the face of the slope, heading south. "The mule," Eldridge said. "A loaded mule can't make this grade. Not without slipping. I haven't seen a scuff mark in 20 minutes. No manure. No hair on the brush. So where is he?" "He turned," Eldridge said. "At that switchback. He went south. Along the contour line." "Why?" "Because it's easier," Eldridge said. "And because it leads back down." Nora stood up. "Down?" "He wouldn't go down. He was going to the claim." "Or he was going home," Eldridge said. He walked over to her. He took off his hat and wiped the grit from his forehead. "Think about it, Mrs. Vance. He's been out here 3 months. He's walked through his boots. He's eating scraps. He meets a partner who smokes too much and throws trash in the bushes. Maybe, just maybe, he decided the gold wasn't worth the dying. He doesn't quit," she said. "Everyone quits," Eldridge said. "It's not a sin. It's survival. Maybe he turned south to hit the lower trail. Maybe he's in San Bernardino right now, drinking a cold beer and wondering how to tell you he failed." "He wouldn't leave me," she said. "He sent for me." He sent for you when he had hope, Eldridge said. Hope runs out faster than water. She stared at him. The anger flared in her eyes, hot and bright. You don't know him, she said. I know men, Eldridge said. I know what this country does to them. It strips them down. It takes the fancy ideas about building cradles and houses and turns them into a simple question. Do I want to live till tomorrow? Caleb isn't like you, she snapped. He isn't hard. He isn't hollow. Hollow floats, Eldridge said. Heavy sinks. She reached into her dress. She pulled out a locket. It was gold, oval, hanging on a delicate chain that looked absurd against the dust on her neck. She clicked it open. Look at him, she said. She thrust it at Eldridge. Eldridge looked. It was a tintype, small and gray. A studio portrait. The man in the picture was sitting in a chair, holding a bowler hat on his knee. He was big, broad shoulders, thick neck, but he looked uncomfortable in his Sunday suit. He had a beard that was trimmed neat. But it was the eyes. They were wide, gentle. They looked at the camera with a kind of baffled kindness, like he was apologizing for taking up the photographer's time. He had a soft mouth, not set in a line like a man who spent his days looking at the horizon, but relaxed. He's smiling, Eldridge said. He always smiles, she said. Even when things are hard. He says a smile costs nothing. Eldridge handed the locket back. He looks like a nice fella, Eldridge said. He is. He looks soft. He is strong, she defended. He can lift an anvil. I don't mean muscle, Eldridge said. I mean grit. Callous. He gestured to the brutal landscape around them. The sharp rocks. The relentless sun. The silence that felt like a weight. This place, Eldridge said. It needs sharp edges. It needs men who can bite back. Your husband, in that picture, he looks like he'd share his last biscuit with a stray dog. He would. And that's why he's in trouble, Eldridge said. Because the stray dog out here is a wolf. And the wolf doesn't want the biscuit. He wants the hand. She snapped the locket shut. She tucked it back inside her dress, close to her heart. He isn't dead, she said. And he didn't quit. Then where is he? He's ahead, she said. He found a way. He's smarter than you think. He solves problems. Like a puzzle. Eldridge looked at the trail. He looked at the bay horse, head down, resting. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to ride south, find the easy trail, and ride out of this oven. He wanted to take the $500 in his belt and buy a drink in a saloon where the air didn't taste like hot copper. But he looked at Nora. She was shaking, just a little. Not from the cold, but from the fear that he might be right. She was holding onto that locket like it was an anchor keeping her from drifting away. If we go south, Eldridge said, and he went west, we miss him. If we go west, and he went south, we miss him. He went west, she said. He followed the partner. The partner, Eldridge said. The man with the unshod horse. Yes. Why? Because the partner knew where he was going, she said. Caleb follows people who know the way. He trusts experts. The partner, Eldridge said slowly, was riding a horse with no shoes. That means he was either too broke to shoe it, or he stole it from an Indian. That's not an expert, Mrs. Vance. That's a drifter. Maybe he knew the mountains. Maybe. Eldridge walked to the edge of the trail. He looked down into the canyon they had climbed out of. It was a maze of shadow and rock. If he turned back, Eldridge said, he's safe. He's in Needles. Or on a train. He isn't. If we keep going, Eldridge said, and we don't find him, we might not make it back. The water is low. The horse is tired. I'm not turning back, she said. You're riding my horse. Then I'll walk, she said. Like he did. She started to turn away, to start climbing the steep grade on foot. Eldridge grabbed her arm. Stop, he said. Let go. You walk, you die in an hour. Your boots are falling apart. He pointed to her feet. The stitching on her town boots was giving way. The soles were thin. I don't care, she said. I do, Eldridge said. I don't like burying people. Ground's too hard. He let go of her arm. He looked at the locket bulge under her dress. He thought about the man in the picture. The soft eyes. The Sunday suit. A man like that didn't belong here. He belonged in a shop with sawdust on the floor and a cradle in the window. But he was here. He had walked this rock. He had worn through his boot leather. We go to the crest, Eldridge said. Another 2 miles. If we don't see a sign, a real sign, not a hope, we turn around. Deal, she said immediately. Don't make deals you can't keep, Nora. If there's no sign, we turn. No arguments. No walking off. She hesitated. She looked at the peaks looming above them. Deal, she said softly. Eldridge tightened the cinch. The bay groaned. I know, boy, Eldridge told the horse. I know. He mounted up. He pulled her up behind him. They rode on. The argument hung in the air between them, unresolved. He thought Caleb Vance was a quitter or a corpse. She thought he was a hero on a quest. The trail steepened. The air got colder. Eldridge watched the ground. He scanned for the scratch of iron, the print of a mule. He saw nothing. Just rock. Unforgiving, silent rock. He kept thinking about the boot. The hole in the sole. Why leave it? Unless you didn't need boots anymore. 2 miles, Eldridge whispered. He kicked the horse. They climbed toward the sky, chasing a ghost who smiled for cameras and trusted wolves. Chapter 8. The descent from the high granite teeth of the ridge was a slide down a chute of loose shale that rattled like a bag of marbles being emptied onto a tin roof. The bay horse sat on its haunches for the worst of it, sliding stiff-legged, snorting dust, while Eldridge Sample walked ahead, picking a line through the manzanita and scrub oak that clung to the slope. Nora Vance didn't ride. She walked behind the horse, holding the tail. Her boots were shredded, the soles flapping, but she kept her feet. She didn't complain about the rocks or the angle of the slope. She just watched the bottom of the canyon where a ribbon of green indicated water, or at least mud that remembered water. They hit the flat around noon. The air here was heavy, trapped between the canyon walls, smelling of sage and dry rot. Smoke, Eldridge said. He didn't point. He just lifted his chin toward a grove of cottonwoods a half-mile down the wash. A thin gray line drifted up, lazy and confident. Is it him? Nora asked. She stopped, wiping her face with a sleeve that was no longer gray wool but a patchwork of dirt stains. It's a chimney, Eldridge said. Campfires wander. Chimney smoke goes straight up. They walked toward it. The structure emerged from the brush like a scab on the landscape. It was built of river rock and mud, low and squat, with a roof made of flattened tin cans that rusted in the sun. A corral made of mesquite poles held 2 goats and a mule that looked like it wanted to die but didn't have the energy to lie down. A sign hung over the door, swinging on one hinge. Goods. The trading post, Nora said. He wrote about it. He said he stopped for flour. Let's see if he left anything else, Eldridge said. He tightened the cinch on the bay. He checked the Colt, loosening it in the holster. Trading posts in the middle of nowhere weren't run by choir boys, They were run by men who didn't fit anywhere else. They walked into the yard. A dog, a mangy cur with one ear, lifted its head from the dirt, growled once, and went back to sleep. The door opened. A man stepped out. He was short, wide, wearing suspenders over a union suit that had been red once. He had a beard that looked like a bird's nest made of steel wool. He held a scattergun, broken open over his arm. "Water's $1, the man said. "Beans are $2. Conversation depends on the subject." "We're buying water," Eldridge said. "And grain, if you have it." The man looked at the bay horse. He looked at Nora's ruined boots. He looked at Eldridge's eyes. "Trough's round back," the man said. "Don't let the horse drink it dry. Spring's slow this year." Eldridge led the horse to the trough. The water was green, buzzing with flies, but the bay drank it like it was wine. Nora didn't go to the water. She walked up to the porch. She stood in front of the man. She looked small next to his bulk, but she stood straight. "I'm looking for my husband," she said. The man snapped the shotgun shut. Clack. He leaned it against the wall. "Lot of husbands get lost out here, lady. Usually on purpose." "His name is Caleb Vance," she said. "He's a carpenter. He had a mule." The man scratched his beard. The sound was like sandpaper on wood. "Vance," the man said. "Carpenter. Yeah. I remember him. Polite fella. Didn't curse. Didn't spit. Bought a sack of flour and a pickaxe." "When?" Eldridge asked, walking back from the trough. 3 months back," the man said. "Maybe 4. Time gets slippery out here. I measure it by the supply wagon." "Was he alone?" Eldridge asked. The trader looked at Eldridge. He squinted, his eyes disappearing into the wrinkles of his face. "He came in alone," the trader said. "Walking. Leading a mule. Big animal. Said its name was Barnaby. Talked to it like it was people." Nora let out a breath. "That's him." "He came in alone," the trader repeated. "But he didn't leave alone." Eldridge stepped onto the porch. The wood groaned. "Who did he leave with?" "Fella named Stark," the trader said. "Been hanging around here for a week. Drifter. Said he was a prospector, but he didn't have no tools. Just a horse with no shoes and a thirst he couldn't pay for." "Unshod horse," Eldridge said. "We saw the tracks." Stark was sitting right there. The trader pointed to a bench made of a split log. "Whittling. Watching the road. When your man Vance walked in." Stark lit up like he just found a $20 gold piece. "Why?" Nora asked. "Because Vance looked soft," the trader said bluntly. "He looked like he had money in his pocket and hope in his eyes." Stark looked like a coyote watching a lamb with a limp. "Caleb isn't a lamb," Nora said. "He bought Stark a drink," the trader said. "Then he bought him dinner. Sat right there and listened to Stark spin yarns about the motherlode up in the high peaks. Stark told him he knew a spot. Said he just needed a partner with a strong back and a little capital." Eldridge leaned against the doorframe. He took out his tobacco. "And Vance bought it," Eldridge said. "He ate it up with a spoon," the trader said. "Paid for Stark's supplies. Bought dynamite. Blasting caps. Put it all on credit. No, he paid cash. Gold." Pulled a pouch out of his shirt. Eldridge looked at Nora. She looked stricken. "He had our savings," she whispered. "Everything we had left." "He flashed it," Eldridge said. "In front of a man who didn't have shoes for his horse." "Stark saw that gold," the trader said, and he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile you see on a dog before it bites. "Did you warn him?" Nora asked. Her voice shook. Did you tell Caleb? The trader shrugged. I sell beans, lady. I don't sell advice. Men make their own choices. Vance wanted a guide. Stark wanted a stake. It was a trade. It was a setup, Eldridge said. Maybe, the trader admitted. Stark's a bad one. I've seen him before. Comes through every couple of years. Sometimes he has money, sometimes he don't. But he never has the same partner twice. The silence on the porch was heavy. The wind rattled the tin roof. Where did they go? Eldridge asked. West, the trader said. Stark said the gold was in the granite mountains. Up high. Past the tree line. That fits the trail, Eldridge said. They went up the pass. They loaded the mule heavy, the trader said. Too heavy. That animal was sway-backed when they left. Stark rode his horse. Vance walked. He walked, Nora said. He changed his boots. He bought a pair from me, the trader said. Hobnailed. Said he wanted grip for the climbing. Left his old ones in the canyon. We found one, Eldridge said. The trader nodded. Figures. Stark probably pushed him. Stark doesn't like to go slow. He looked at Nora. He saw the dust on her face, the way she held herself. You going after him? The trader asked. I'm finding him, she said. You find him, the trader said. You watch out for Stark. That man, he carries a knife in his boot. And he don't like splitting shares. Eldridge finished rolling his cigarette. He lit it. Did Stark have a gun? Eldridge asked. Pistol, the trader said. Old army issue. Remington. Wore it cross-draw. But he liked the knife. Used it to clean his nails while he watched Vance count his money. Eldridge blew smoke into the hot air. We need supplies, Eldridge said. Coffee. Bacon. Grain for the horse. I got 'em, the trader said. But the price just went up. You're heading into bad country. Supply and demand. I have money, Eldridge said. He reached for his money belt. No, Nora said. She stepped forward. She reached into her pocket. She didn't pull out money. She pulled out a ring. A plain gold band. This, she said. For the food. And for the information. The trader looked at the ring. He looked at her hand. It was bare. That your wedding ring? The trader asked. It's gold, she said. It spends. Nora, Eldridge said. Put it away. I have cash. It's my husband, she said. My debt. She put the ring on the railing. It sat there, small and shiny against the gray wood. The trader picked it up. He bit it. He nodded. I'll get the sacks, he said. He went inside. Nora didn't look at Eldridge. She looked at the mountains to the west. He's in trouble, she said. He's with a wolf, Eldridge said. And he's the sheep. Stark, she said. She tested the name. He sounds cold. He sounds hungry, Eldridge said. And your husband just fed him. The trader came back out with 2 canvas sacks. He dropped them on the porch. Beans. Coffee. Bacon. And a bag of corn for the beast. Eldridge took the sacks. He slung them over his shoulder. One more thing, Eldridge said. Did Stark say anything else? About where he was from? Or where he was going after? Said he liked California, the trader said. Said that the weather was better. Said he was tired of the dust. California, Eldridge said. Everybody wants to go to California. Stark said he was going to retire there, the trader said. Once he hit the big one. Eldridge looked at the ring in the trader's pocket. He looked at Nora. "Let's go," Eldridge said. They walked back to the bay horse. Eldridge tied the sacks to the saddle. He tightened the cinch. "He took advantage of him," Nora said. "He saw Caleb was kind, and he used it." "He saw a mark," Eldridge said. "Kindness is just a handle for men like Stark. A way to grab hold." He mounted up. He pulled her up behind him. "Stark has a gun," Eldridge said. "And a knife. And he's had 3 months to decide he doesn't need a partner." "Caleb is strong," she said. "He builds things." "Stark breaks things," Eldridge said. "That's easier." He turned the horse. They rode out of the yard, past the goat pen, past the sleeping dog. They picked up the trail again. It led west, straight toward the high peaks where the snow never melted and the silence covered everything. Eldridge felt the weight of the new supplies. They were heavy, but not as heavy as the knowledge that they were following a trail that was getting colder by the mile, chasing a man who had walked into the mountains with a smile on his face and a knife at his back. Chapter 9. The sun was a dying ember on the western peaks, casting the trail in a flat, gray light that made distances hard to judge and shadows look like holes in the world. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse in silence. He could feel the tension in Nora Vance's body against his back. She wasn't holding on as tight as before. She was sitting stiffly, her spine rigid, as if she were trying to pull away from the reality of what they had just learned at the trading post. "Stark," she whispered. She said the name like a curse she was afraid to utter too loud. "He's a name," Eldridge said. "Names don't hurt you. Men do." "The trader said he was a coyote." "Traders talk," Eldridge said. "They sell beans and gossip. But he was right about one thing. Your husband picked up a shadow." Eldridge pulled the horse up. They were in a narrow defile, the walls of the canyon rising steep and red on either side. It was a good place to stop, sheltered from the wind that was starting to pick up, carrying the bite of the high desert night. "We camp here," Eldridge said. He dismounted. He helped Nora down. She hit the ground and turned away, walking a few steps down the trail, looking west. "We should keep going," she said. "The moon is coming up." "The horse needs to eat," Eldridge said. "And I need to think." He stripped the saddle. He poured a measure of the corn he'd bought into his hat and set it down for the bay. The horse crunched the grain greedily. Eldridge gathered dry mesquite branches. He built a small fire, keeping it low. He filled the coffee pot from the canteen and set it on the coals. Nora came back to the fire. She sat on a rock, wrapping her arms around her knees. She looked small in the vast darkness of the canyon. "Why?" she asked. "Why would Caleb go with him? If Stark looked like that?" "Like a wolf?" Eldridge asked. "Yes. Caleb is a judge of character. He hires men. He knows who to trust." "He knows carpenters," Eldridge said. "He knows men who build things. He doesn't know men who take things." Eldridge poured the coffee. He handed her a tin cup. "Drink," he said. She took it. The steam rose into her face. "Loneliness," Eldridge said. "What?" "That's why he went with him. You said he was out here 3 months. Alone. Walking a mule through rocks that don't talk back." Eldridge sat down across from her. He rolled a cigarette. "A man alone out here, he starts to hear things. The wind sounds like voices. The shadows look like people. He gets desperate for a word. Any word. Just to prove he's still alive." He lit the cigarette. The smoke drifted up. "Then he meets Stark," Eldridge said. "Stark is sitting on a bench. He talks. He tells stories. He laughs. He buys a drink. Suddenly, the silence isn't so loud. Caleb isn't weak, Nora said. It's not about weakness. It's about hunger. Not for food. For company. Eldridge leaned forward. The firelight flickered in his eyes. The trader said Stark never has the same partner twice, Eldridge said. Nora went still. What does that mean? It means his partners don't come back, Eldridge said. It means Stark is a professional. He waits for a greenhorn with a stake. He befriends him. He guides him. And when they get far enough out, where the law is just a rumor, he dissolves the partnership. You think he killed him? I think he planned to, Eldridge said. From the minute he saw your husband pull that gold pouch out. Nora set the cup down. Her hand was shaking, spilling coffee into the dust. We have to hurry, she said. If Stark is planning it. It was a month ago, Nora. Maybe he waited, she said desperately. Maybe they found the gold, and they're still working. Maybe Stark needs him to dig. Maybe, Eldridge said. Labor is valuable. Digging a shaft takes 2 men. One to pick, one to haul. He looked at the darkness beyond the fire. But you need to be ready, Eldridge said. We aren't walking into a rescue. We're walking into a crime scene. I don't believe it. You don't want to believe it, Eldridge said. But you need to hear the warning. The trader gave it to you gentle. I'm giving it to you straight. He stood up. He walked to his saddlebags. He pulled out the Winchester. He started wiping down the action with an oily rag. Stark has a gun, Eldridge said. And a knife. And he's had a month to get comfortable. If we walk up on him, he isn't going to offer us coffee. He won't hurt me, Nora said. I'm a woman. Eldridge laughed. It was a dark sound. Stark doesn't care what you are, Eldridge said. He cares what you witness. To him, you're just another loose end. Like the boot in the canyon. Nora stood up. She walked to the fire. She looked down at the flames. Caleb wrote me, she said softly. In that last letter. He said he met a man who knew the mountains. He said the man had kind eyes. Wolves have nice eyes, Eldridge said. Until they open their mouths. He said he felt lucky. Luck is a trap, Eldridge said. He mistook a predator for a partner because he wanted to believe the world was good. That's a fatal mistake out here. He levered the rifle. Clack, clack. He checked the chamber. Get some sleep, Eldridge said. Tomorrow we climb. The trail goes straight up from here. Stark took him to the high peaks. Why? Because it's isolated, Eldridge said. And because gravity does the work of hiding the bodies. Nora looked at him. She looked at the gun. She realized then that Eldridge wasn't just a guide. He was the answer to Stark. He was the violence she had hired to counter the violence she feared. You'll stop him, she said. I'll find him, Eldridge said. What happens after that depends on Stark. She lay down on the saddle blanket. She pulled his coat over her. She turned her back to the fire, facing the dark. Eldridge sat up. He smoked his cigarette down to the nub. He thought about the good man with the kind eyes who built cradles. He thought about Stark whittling on a bench, watching the gold pouch. It was an old story. The sheep and the butcher. Kind eyes, Eldridge whispered to the fire. That's the worst kind of lie. He threw the butt into the coals. He settled back against the rock, the Winchester across his lap. He didn't sleep. He watched the shadows, waiting for the sun to bring the next bad news. Chapter 10. The morning coffee tasted like the sack it came in, burlap and dust, but it was hot, and in the high desert before sunrise, heat was a currency you didn't squander. Eldridge Sample sat by the cold fire pit, holding his tin cup with both hands. He watched Nora Vance pack her saddlebags. She moved with a stiff, mechanical efficiency, rolling the blanket tight, buckling the straps. She was learning the rhythm of the trail, but she wasn't happy about it. She looked like a woman getting ready for a funeral she didn't want to attend. "We need to move," Nora said. She didn't look at him. She looked at the peaks turning pink in the west. "The sun is coming." "The sun always comes," Eldridge said. "Sit down. Drink your coffee. We're wasting time." "We're waking up," Eldridge said. "There's a difference." He reached for the canvas sack of supplies they had bought from the trader. He needed to portion out the bacon for the day's ride. He untied the twine at the neck. He pulled out the slab of salt pork. It was wrapped in heavy paper to keep the grease from soaking through the canvas. Eldridge unwrapped the meat. He pulled his knife to slice it. He stopped. The paper wasn't butcher paper. It was a page torn from a ledger book. Ruled lines. Inked columns. The trader had evidently run out of wrapping paper and used the back of his accounts. The grease had turned the paper translucent, but the ink was dark, indelible. Eldridge looked at the date at the top. April 14th. 3 months ago. He read the entry. C. Vance. 1 pickaxe. 2 shovels. 1 case dynamite. 1 box caps. 50 pounds flour. It was a standard list. The kit for a man planning to move a lot of rock in a hurry. But it was the column on the right that caught Eldridge's eye. The payment column. It didn't say cash. It didn't say gold. It said note. Due in 90 days. Collateral, Mule, Barnaby. Eldridge wiped the grease off the paper with his thumb. He read it again. "Mrs. Vance," Eldridge said. Nora turned. "What?" "Come here." She walked over, coffee cup in hand. "What is it?" "The trader," Eldridge said. "He told us your husband flashed a pouch of gold. Paid cash for Stark's supplies." "Yes. Caleb had our savings. Look at this." He handed her the greasy paper. She took it. She held it up to the firelight. She read the entry. Her lips moved silently. "Credit," she whispered. "He put it on credit." "He didn't pay cash," Eldridge said. "He signed a note. And he put the mule up against it." "But," the trader said. "The trader talks," Eldridge said. "Paper doesn't." He took the paper back. He studied the numbers. "If he signed a note," Eldridge said, "it means he didn't have the gold. Or he didn't want to spend it." "He had it," Nora said. "I saw him pack it. $500 in eagle coins. In a leather pouch." "Then why sign a note against his mule?" "A mule is a prospector's life. You don't gamble the mule unless you're tapped out." Eldridge looked at the list again. 1 case dynamite. He was betting heavy, Eldridge said. Dynamite isn't for looking. Dynamite is for opening. He thought he knew exactly where the gold was. He wanted to get in, blast it out, and pay the debt before the 90 days were up. 90 days, Nora said. She looked at the sky. That's this week. The note is due. He was on a deadline, Eldridge said. That explains the rush. The wandering trail that straightened out. He was feeling the clock. But the gold, she said. Where did it go? If he didn't spend it? Eldridge looked at the fire. He thought about Stark. The wolf with the kind eyes. Maybe he didn't have it, Eldridge said. He did. Or maybe, Eldridge said slowly, he used it as bait. Bait? He meets Stark. Stark is a drifter. A predator. Caleb is alone, lonely, maybe a little scared of the silence. He wants a partner. But he can't hire one because he's saving his cash for the claim, or maybe the cash is gone, spent on the train, the horse, the boots. Eldridge looked at her. So he pretends, Eldridge said. He flashes a pouch. Maybe it's full of washers. Maybe it's full of rocks. He lets Stark see it. He makes Stark think he's rich. Why would he do that? To get help, Eldridge said. Stark knows the mountains. Caleb needs a guide. He dangles the gold to get Stark interested. Nora went pale. He tricked him? He bluffed him, Eldridge said. It's a poker move. You show a strong hand when you're holding nothing. But Stark, if Stark found out. Stark isn't the kind of man who likes being bluffed, Eldridge said. He walked into those mountains, thinking he was helping a rich greenhorn. Thinking he was going to get paid, or steal the pouch. Eldridge folded the greasy paper. He put it in his pocket. If Caleb was broke, Eldridge said, and Stark found out, that explains the boot. It explains the mess at the camp. It explains why Stark is still out there. Stark is looking for the gold, Nora whispered. The real gold. Or he found it, Eldridge said. And he realized the only way to get paid was to take the claim. He stood up. He kicked dirt over the fire. Your husband played a dangerous game, Nora. He tried to outsmart a wolf. He just wanted to build a house, she said. Her voice broke. He just wanted enough to come home. Desperation makes men do stupid things, Eldridge said. Like sign notes they can't pay, and hire partners they can't trust. He walked to the bay horse. He threw the saddle on. We have to hurry, Eldridge said. Because the note is due. Because if Stark figured out the pouch was empty, he's been angry for a month. And angry men don't leave witnesses. He tightened the cinch. Mount up, Eldridge said. Nora climbed onto the horse. She moved heavily, the weight of the new information pressing down on her shoulders. The image of the good man was cracking, replaced by a man who lied about money to survive. He did it for me, she said to the back of Eldridge's coat. He wanted to provide. I know, Eldridge said. That's usually how the trouble starts. He swung into the saddle. Hold on, he said. He turned the horse toward the high peaks. The trail ahead wasn't just a search anymore. It was a race against a debt that had already been called in. 90 days, Eldridge muttered. Chapter 11. The trail didn't just climb, it committed. It stopped weaving through the chala and took a straight, brutal line up the spine of the granite ridge, cutting through the scree like a scar. The wind up here was constant, a cold, dry force that stripped the sweat off a man's skin before it could cool him. Eldridge Sample dismounted. The bay horse was blowing hard, its head low, foam dripping from the bit. It had carried double for 10 miles of uphill grind, and it was done. We walk, Eldridge said. Nora Vance slid down. Her boots hit the rock with a scuffing sound. The leather was shredded at the toes, exposing the wool of her socks. She didn't complain. She just wrapped her shawl tighter and looked up at the peaks that loomed overhead like Judgment Day. It's steep, she said. It's direct, Eldridge corrected. Whoever picked this line wasn't looking for gold anymore. He was looking to get somewhere. He led the horse. Nora followed, holding onto the stirrup leather for balance. They climbed for an hour. The air thinned. The scrub brush disappeared, replaced by stunted pine and lichen that clung to the rock in patches of fluorescent green. Eldridge stopped at a switchback. He knelt in the dirt. Look at this, he said. Nora leaned over. Tracks. The story changed, Eldridge said. Back in the foothills, your husband was wandering, zigzagging, looking at rocks. Here, he stopped looking. He traced a line in the dust with his finger. See the mule prints? Eldridge asked. Deep. The edges are cut sharp. That animal was carrying a heavy load. Full pack. And he wasn't stopping to graze. He was hurrying, Nora said. Because of the deadline. Maybe, Eldridge said. But look at the boot prints. He pointed to 2 sets of tracks moving alongside the mule. Here's your husband, Eldridge said, pointing to the hobnailed print with the worn heel. Walking on the left. Beside the mule. And Stark. Walking in front, Eldridge said. On the right. Leading. How do you know he's leading? Stride, Eldridge said. Stark's prints are spaced even. Purposeful. He's picking the line. Caleb's prints, they stutter. He stumbles. He stops. Then he hurries to catch up. He's following. Eldridge stood up. He wiped the dust from his hands. The dynamic shifted, Eldridge said. Down below, Caleb was the boss. He had the supplies. He had the gold. He was paying the freight. Up here, Stark took over. Why? Because Stark knew where they were going, Eldridge said. And Caleb didn't. He looked up the trail. It vanished into a notch between 2 peaks, a dark throat of shadow. Stark stopped being the partner, Eldridge said, and started being the guide. Or the jailer. Jailer? Nora's voice hitched. You think he took him prisoner? I think he took control, Eldridge said. When a man realizes he's been bluffed, when he realizes the gold pouch is light, he gets angry. But Stark didn't kill him down there. He brought him up here. To the mine. To the work, Eldridge said. Stark needed a back. He needed someone to swing the pick. He wasn't going to dig the hole himself. He checked the bay horse. The animal's sides were heaving less now. Can you walk a little further? Eldridge asked Nora. Save the horse for the flat. I can walk to the ocean if I have to, she said. The ocean is a long way off. Let's just make the ridge. They started climbing again. The silence was absolute. No birds. No insects. Just the sound of boots on stone and the heavy breathing of the horse. Eldridge watched the tracks. They told a grim story. The mule tracks got deeper. The animal was stumbling, sliding. Barnaby was tired, Eldridge said quietly. Or hurt. He saw a spot where the mule had gone down to its knees. The scuff marks were frantic. Then footprints around it. Heavy. They stopped here, Eldridge said, pausing by a scrape in the rock. The mule fell. They had to get him up. He looked at the ground. He saw the cigarette butt. Another one. Stark's brand. Stark smoked while they worked, Eldridge said. He watched. Caleb would have helped the mule, Nora said. He would have unpacked him. There's no sign of unpacking, Eldridge said. Just drag marks. They hauled the animal up. Stark pushed them. He didn't care about the mule. He just cared about the payload. They reached the top of the switchback. The trail flattened out slightly, running along a narrow ledge with a 1,000-foot drop on one side. Eldridge stopped. He looked at the view. The desert floor was a brown haze miles below. Why up here? Nora asked. If there's no gold. Stark knew something, Eldridge said. Or he thought he did. You don't drag a mule up a goat track for the view. He had a destination. He looked at the tracks again. The hobnailed boots were dragging now. The heel strikes were heavy, scuffing. Caleb was done, Eldridge said. He was walking on will. "He's strong," Nora said, but she sounded less certain. She looked at the drop-off. "He kept going." "He had to," Eldridge said. "You stop up here, you don't start again." He mounted the bay horse. The ledge was wide enough to ride, but just barely. "Get on," he said. Nora climbed up. She didn't look down. She pressed her face against his back. "He's afraid," she whispered. "Who? Caleb?" "Yes. I can feel it. In the tracks. He's walking because he's afraid to stop." "Fear is fuel," Eldridge said. "It burns dirty, but it burns hot." He guided the horse along the ledge. The iron shoes clicked. They were following a march. A forced march. 2 men and a mule walking into the sky, one leading, one following, bound together by a lie and a debt that was coming due. Eldridge checked the sun. It was dropping behind the peaks, casting the trail in shadow. "We need to find a shelf," Eldridge said. "Somewhere wide enough to sleep without rolling off." "We're close," Nora said. "I can feel that too." "We're close to something," Eldridge agreed. "But I don't think it's a house with a porch." He kept the horse moving, following the deep, desperate gouges of the mule, heading toward the dark notch where the trail finally ended. Chapter 12. The trail ended at a washout where the mountain had simply given up and slid into the ravine below. It was a sheer drop of 50 feet into a tangle of manzanita and jagged boulders. Eldridge Sample pulled the bay horse up. He dismounted. He looked over the edge. "End of the line," Eldridge said. Nora Vance slid down. She stood beside him, clutching her shawl against the wind. She looked down. Her breath caught in her throat. "Is that?" she started. At the bottom of the ravine, sprawled across a flat rock like a discarded rug, was a mule. It was brown, or it had been. Now it was dusted gray, stiff legs pointing at the sky. The buzzards had done their work on the soft parts, but the hide remained dried tight over the ribs. "It's Barnaby," Nora whispered. "Stay here," Eldridge said. "I'm coming down. It's steep. And it smells." "I'm coming." Eldridge didn't argue. He tied the bay to a scrub pine. He started down the slide, digging his heels into the loose dirt. Nora followed, slipping, sliding, grabbing at roots to slow her descent. They reached the bottom. The smell was there, faint now, mostly dry rot and leather, but it was the smell of death. Eldridge walked to the carcass. He circled it. The mule hadn't fallen. It was lying on its side, legs relaxed. He knelt by the head. He brushed the flies away from the skull. "Look," Eldridge said. He pointed to a hole in the forehead, right between the eyes. A dark, neat puncture in the bone. "Shot," Eldridge said. "Close range. Execution style." Nora stood over the animal. She wasn't looking at the bullet hole. She was looking at the white patch on the mule's nose. She reached out a hand, then stopped. "Why?" she asked. "Why shoot him?" Eldridge moved to the legs. He lifted a foreleg. The hoof was cracked, split right up to the coronet band. He was lame, Eldridge said. Stone bruise that turned into a split. He couldn't walk. Not with a load. He dropped the leg. "They put him down," Eldridge said. "Mercy. Or just efficiency. You can't drag a lame mule up a mountain." He looked at the rest of the body. The pack saddle was gone. The harness was gone. Even the halter had been stripped. There was nothing left but the animal itself. "They took everything," Eldridge said. "The panniers. The ropes. The pickaxe. They carried it?" "They had to," Eldridge said. "If they wanted to keep mining. Or keep eating." He stood up. He scanned the ravine floor. "Imagine it," Eldridge said. 2 men. 1 mule. The mule goes lame. It stops. It won't move. They argue. "Caleb wouldn't shoot him," Nora said. "He raised him from a foal. He fed him apples." "Stark shot him," Eldridge said. "Look at the angle." The shooter was standing in front, looking down. "Stark doesn't care about names. He cares about speed." Eldridge walked a few feet away. He found a pile of rocks. Not a cairn this time. Just a heap of stones thrown over something. He kicked the stones aside. Underneath was a pile of gear. A heavy canvas tent. A Dutch oven. A sack of flour that had burst, turning into a hard white paste in the rain. "They cached the heavy stuff," Eldridge said. "They couldn't carry it all." He poked through the pile. He found a saw. A carpenter's saw. He held it up. "Caleb's?" Nora nodded. She was crying now, silent tears tracking through the dust on her face. "He brought it to build the cabin." "He left it," Eldridge said. "He left the saw. He left the tent. He left the food." "What did they take?" "They took the dynamite," Eldridge said. "I don't see the case." "They took the caps. They took the gold pan." He tossed the saw back onto the pile. "Priorities changed, Mrs. Vance. They weren't building a home anymore. They were hunting a pay streak. And they were doing it light." "Caleb walked," she said. "He carried the dynamite." "Someone carried it," Eldridge said. 50 pounds of high explosives. Up a goat track. He looked up the ravine wall. On the far side, a faint trail picked up, heading even higher into the granite peaks. They split the load, Eldridge guessed. Or Stark made Caleb carry the heavy stuff while he carried the gun. Nora touched the mule's flank. "He's alone," she whispered. "Barnaby. He died alone." "He died quick," Eldridge said. "That's more than most get out here." He took her arm. "Come on," he said. "We have to climb out. The sun is dropping. We can't just leave him." "He's dead, Nora. We can't bury a mule in a rock pile. The coyotes have to eat too." She looked at him. Her eyes were hard again. The grief was turning into something else. Fuel. "Stark did this," she said. "Stark pulled the trigger," Eldridge said. "But the mountain broke the hoof." "Stark made him keep going," she said. "Caleb would have stopped. He would have rested him." "Maybe," Eldridge said. "Or maybe gold fever makes men forget their friends." He led her back to the slope. They climbed out of the ravine, scrambling up the loose rock. They reached the bay horse. Eldridge tightened the cinch. He looked back at the ravine. The dead mule was just a gray shape in the shadows now. "The load got heavier," Eldridge said. 2 men walking, carrying a case of dynamite and a grudge. "Caleb is strong," she said. "Strong backs break," Eldridge said. "Especially when there's a gun pointed at them." He mounted up. He pulled her up. "We follow the foot traffic," Eldridge said. They went high, toward the snow. They rode on. The air grew colder. The trail was nothing but a scratch on the face of the rock now. Eldridge felt the shift. The search wasn't about a lost husband anymore. It was about a crime scene that stretched for 20 miles. The dead mule was just the first body. He had a feeling it wouldn't be the last. Chapter 13. The air up here was thin enough to make a man dizzy if he stood up too fast, and cold enough to turn breath into white plumes that hung in the stillness. Eldridge Sample sat on a granite shelf, the Springfield carbine resting on his knees. Below him, the mountain slope fell away into a patchwork of scree and stunted pine. He wasn't looking at the view. He was watching a patch of brush 200 yards downwind. "Don't move," Eldridge whispered. Nora Vance sat 10 feet behind him, huddled in his canvas coat. She was shivering, her face pale and drawn. The altitude sickness was working on her, mixing with the hunger to leave her gray and quiet. "I'm not moving," she said. Her voice was a ghost. "Good. Because dinner is looking at us." A mule deer buck stepped out of the timber. It was a young male, antlers just starting to fuzz with velvet. It lifted its nose, testing the wind. It smelled the pine. It smelled the snow that never quite melted in the high crevices. It didn't smell the man and the woman, because the wind was coming up the slope. Eldridge raised the rifle. He moved slow, fluid. He didn't rush. Rushing meant missing, and missing meant another night of beans that tasted like dust. He settled the sights behind the buck's shoulder. He took a breath. He let half of it out. He squeezed. Boom. The shot rolled across the mountain range like thunder. The buck dropped where it stood, a clean kill that didn't even twitch. Eldridge lowered the rifle. He worked the lever, ejecting the spent brass. Clack click. "We eat," Eldridge said. He walked down the slope. He pulled his knife. He dressed the deer quickly, leaving the gut pile for the coyotes. He cut the haunches and the backstraps. He didn't take the whole thing. The horse couldn't carry the weight, and they couldn't cure it fast enough. He carried the meat back to the shelf. Nora watched him. She looked at the red meat. She didn't look disgusted. She looked ravenous. "Fire," Eldridge said. He gathered deadwood, twisting juniper branches that burned hot and fast. He built the fire in the lee of a boulder to hide the light. He skewered the meat on green sticks and set them over the coals. The smell of roasting venison filled the air. It was a heavy, rich scent that made the mouth water and the stomach cramp. They ate in silence. Eldridge used his knife to cut chunks of hot meat, handing them to Nora on the point of the blade. She took them with her fingers, blowing on them, eating with a focus that pushed everything else away. She finished a strip of backstrap. She wiped her grease-slicked fingers on her skirt. The color was coming back to her cheeks. "Better?" Eldridge asked. "I felt hollow," she said. "Like the wind was blowing right through me." "Altitude," Eldridge said. "It burns fuel. You have to keep the fire stoked." He poured coffee into the tin cup. He handed it to her. She held the warm metal against her palms. She looked into the fire. The flames danced, reflecting in her eyes. "He hated hunting," she said softly. "Caleb. He said it was cruel. To kill something just because you were hungry." "Did he eat meat?" "From the butcher. He said that was different. It was already dead." Eldridge threw a bone into the darkness. "That's a city distinction. Out here, everything is alive until you make it dead. Or it makes you dead." "I told him not to go," she said. It wasn't a casual statement. It was a confession. It dropped into the silence like a stone. "You told him it was dangerous," Eldridge said. "I told him it was stupid," she said. She looked at Eldridge. Her eyes were wet. "I told him he was a fool to think he could find gold. I told him he was just running away because he failed at the shop." "Did he argue?" "He never argues. He just got quiet. He packed his bag. He kissed me on the forehead and said, 'I have to build something, Nora. Even if it's just a hole in the ground.'" She took a sip of coffee. Her hand shook. "I didn't kiss him back," she whispered. "He left, and I didn't kiss him back." "So you followed him," Eldridge said. "To say sorry. To bring him home." To tell him I didn't mean it. You meant it, Eldridge said. You were scared. Scared people say mean things. It's a defense. It's guilt, she said. It's heavy. He's out here with Stark, maybe hurt, maybe dead, because I pushed him. If I had been supportive, if I had believed in him, he would have come anyway, Eldridge said. Men don't leave because their wives are mean. They leave because they can't stand looking in the mirror and seeing nothing looking back. He rolled a cigarette. He lit it with a twig from the fire. Guilt is useless baggage, Nora. It weighs a ton, and it doesn't pay the freight. You drop it. I can't. You have to, Eldridge said. We have a climb tomorrow that's going to break your heart. You carry that guilt up the mountain, you'll fall. And I can't catch you. He trusted Stark because he was lonely, she said. He was lonely because I wasn't with him. He trusted Stark because Stark is a con man, Eldridge said. Stark saw a mark. He saw the need. That's not on you. That's on the nature of wolves. He looked at the fire. You think finding him fixes it? Eldridge asked. You think, if we find him alive, you say sorry, and everything goes back to the way it was in Ohio? Yes. It won't, Eldridge said. He's seen things now. He's done things. He watched his mule get shot. He walked until his boots fell apart. That changes a man. He isn't the carpenter who built the cradle anymore. He's still Caleb. He's a survivor, Eldridge said. Or he's a victim. Neither one fits in the parlor. He finished his cigarette. He crushed it out. Sleep, Eldridge said. The meat will hold you till morning. Then we find the smoke. Smoke. I smelled it, Eldridge said. When the wind shifted. Faint. Like pine pitch burning. A campfire. Or a stove, Eldridge said. High up. In the peaks. Is it them? Someone is up there, Eldridge said. Someone who wants to stay warm. He stood up. He walked to the edge of the light. He looked up at the black, jagged line of the summit against the stars. Leave the guilt here, Eldridge said. Bury it with the deer bones. You need your hands free for what's coming. Nora lay down. She pulled the coat tight. She looked at the fire, watching it die down to embers. I just want to tell him, she whispered. Tell him when we find him, Eldridge said. If we find him. He sat down with his back against the rock, the rifle across his legs. He watched the dark. He didn't tell her that the smoke he smelled wasn't just wood. It had a sweet, metallic tint to it. Blasting powder. Someone was moving rock up there. Someone was digging deep. And men digging for gold didn't like visitors, especially visitors bringing apologies from a life they had left behind. Chapter 14. The fire from the night before was a circle of gray ash, cold enough to touch. Eldridge Sample kicked dirt over it, burying the evidence of their camp, though he figured the coyotes would dig up the deer bones before noon. He looked at the bay horse. The animal was standing head down, one rear leg cocked, resting. It had grazed on a patch of dry bunchgrass, but its ribs were showing, ridges of bone pressing against the dusty hide. He can't carry you today, Eldridge said. Nora Vance stood by the rock where she had slept. She was wrapping strips of the deer hide around her boots, tying them off with the raw sinew Eldridge had cut. Her town boots had finally given up the ghost on the shale slide yesterday. The soles were flapping like tongues. I can walk, Nora said. She pulled the knot tight with her teeth. I feel better. The meat helped. The meat put fuel in the furnace, Eldridge said. But the chimney is steep. He pointed up. The peak loomed above them, a jagged tooth of granite that seemed to lean over the canyon, threatening to drop 1,000 tons of rock on their heads. A thin ribbon of gray smoke was still visible against the pale morning sky, rising from a notch near the snow line. "That's the target," Eldridge said. "It looks close," Nora said. "It looks close because the air is clear," Eldridge said. "It's 5 miles. And it's all vertical." He stripped the saddle off the bay. He cached it in a crevice between 2 boulders, covering it with brush. He kept the bridle on, but he took the bit out of the horse's mouth, letting it hang loose so the animal could breathe easier. He loaded the saddlebags, the remaining coffee, the last of the bacon, the heavy box of ammunition, over the horse's withers. "We lead him," Eldridge said. "He carries the gear. We carry ourselves." They started the climb. It wasn't a hike, it was a scramble. The ground was loose, a mix of scree and volcanic ash that slid underfoot. For every 2 steps up, they slid 1 back. Eldridge led the way, holding the reins. He picked a zigzag path, traversing the slope to cut the angle. He could hear Nora behind him, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for a break. She just kept moving, driven by a guilt that was heavier than the pack on the horse. The sun cleared the ridge, hitting them with a sudden blinding light. The temperature jumped 20 degrees in 10 minutes. They reached a shelf of solid rock around mid-morning. Eldridge stopped. The horse blew hard, foam dripping from its nose. "Water," Eldridge said. He unhooked the canteen. He poured a little into his hat for the horse. The animal drank it in 1 slurp, licking the felt. Eldridge took a sip. He handed it to Nora. She drank. Her hands were scraped, bleeding from grabbing at rocks. "Do you smell it?" she asked. Eldridge sniffed the air. The wind was coming down the mountain, chilly and erratic. "Pine," he said. "And dust." "No," she said. "Something sharp. Like 4th of July." Eldridge inhaled deeply. He caught it. A faint, acrid tang that sat on the back of the tongue. "Sulfur," Eldridge said. "Blasting powder." "They're mining." "They're moving rock," Eldridge said. "Someone is burning powder up there. That means they found something hard enough to need breaking." He looked at the smoke column again. It was thicker now, darker. "That's not a stove," Eldridge said. "That's a forge. Or a big fire." "Maybe they're smelting," she said. "Caleb knows how to assay. He has a crucible." "Maybe." Eldridge checked the Springfield. He worked the action, just to make sure the dust hadn't gummed it up. "Listen to me," Eldridge said. "We're walking into a camp. We don't know who's there. We don't know how many." "It's Stark," she said. "And Caleb." "We assume it's Stark," Eldridge said. "We assume he's armed. We assume he's jumpy. Men sitting on a gold mine don't like visitors. I'm his wife." "You're a claim jumper," Eldridge said. "Until proven otherwise. You stay behind me. If I tell you to get down, you drop. You don't look, you don't argue. You eat dirt." "I understand." "I hope so." They pushed on. The trees thinned out, leaving only twisted, wind-blown pines that clung to the rock like desperate fingers. The air grew thinner. Eldridge felt his heart thumping against his ribs, a heavy, slow rhythm. They found the trail an hour later. It wasn't much of a trail. Just a line where the rocks had been cleared away, piled on the side to make a path wide enough for a mule. Eldridge knelt. He touched a scratch on the stone. "Fresh," he said. "Iron shoe. The mule came this way." "Barnaby." "Barnaby is dead in the ravine," Eldridge reminded her. "This is a new mule. Or a horse." He followed the track for a few yards. He found a pile of manure. "Horse," Eldridge said. grain-fed. Someone has been to town recently. Or they brought a lot of oats. Stark, Nora said. The trader said he had a horse. The trader said he had an unshod horse. This one has shoes. New ones. Eldridge stood up. Stark upgraded, Eldridge said. Shoes cost money. Grain cost money. He found the gold, Nora whispered. He found something. They followed the trail. It wound around a shoulder of the mountain, hugging the cliff face. Below them, the world fell away into a blue haze. Above, the granite towered, silent and cold. The smell of sulfur grew stronger. It mixed with the smell of wood smoke and something else. Coffee. They're brewing, Eldridge said. He slowed his pace. He moved with the quiet caution of a hunter closing in on a blind. He tied the bay horse to a shrub. We leave him here, Eldridge said. His hooves are too loud. We walk the rest. We creep. He led her up the trail. They rounded a bend. The trail opened up into a small, high valley. A cirque, carved by a glacier that had melted 10,000 years ago. A stream of clear water tumbled down from the snowpack, cutting through a meadow of alpine grass. And in the center of the meadow, next to the stream, was a camp. It wasn't a temporary camp. It was a residence. A canvas wall tent was set up on a wooden platform. A stone chimney had been built against a rock face, smoke chugging out of it. A sluice box was set up in the creek, water running through it. And a mine opening. A black square cut into the hillside, shored up with fresh timbers. Caleb built that, Nora said. She pointed to the sluice box. Look at the joints. Dovetailed. He never uses nails if he can help it. It's good work, Eldridge admitted. He scanned the camp. A horse was picketed in the grass. A big bay, similar to his own but heavier. A pack mule stood next to it. But there was only one man. He was standing by the stream, bending over a gold pan. He wore a red flannel shirt and suspenders. A pistol was belted around his waist. He was swirling the water, looking at the sediment in the bottom of the pan. He stopped. He picked something out of the pan. He held it up to the sun. It flashed. Gold, Eldridge whispered. The man threw his head back and laughed. It wasn't a crazy laugh. It was a satisfied, rich sound. Nora grabbed Eldridge's arm. Her nails dug into his coat. Is that him? She asked. Is that Caleb? Eldridge looked at the man. He was tall. He had a beard. But he moved with a looseness, a swagger that didn't fit the description of the carpenter who built cradles. The man turned. He walked toward the tent. He walked with a limp, favoring his left leg. That's not Caleb, Eldridge said. How do you know? Caleb walked until his boots wore out, Eldridge said. That man is wearing new boots. And he walks like a man who's been riding. The man reached the tent. He ducked inside. Eldridge pulled Nora back behind the rock. That's Stark, Eldridge said. Where is Caleb? Eldridge looked at the mine entrance. He looked at the fresh pile of tailings, gray rock dumped down the slope. He's not fishing, Eldridge said. What do we do? We go down there, Eldridge said. But we don't go down as friends. We go down as lost travelers. I can't pretend, she said. I want to ask him. I want to scream at him. You scream, he shoots, Eldridge said. He's got cover. He's got the high ground. We have to get close. We have to get inside his guard. He looked at her. She was filthy, her dress torn, her face a mask of exhaustion. You look the part, Eldridge said. A desperate woman, looking for salvation. He'll like that. Stark likes being the savior. That's how he gets close. And you? I'm just the hire, Eldridge said. The dumb cowboy who got you here. Let him dismiss me. Let him look at you. I hate him, she said. I don't even know him, and I hate him. Good. Use it. But keep it behind your teeth. Eldridge checked the Colt. He checked the Springfield. We walk in, Eldridge said. Hands in plain sight. We ask for water. We ask for directions. And then we look for the rest of the story, Eldridge said. We look for the things he didn't bury. He stepped out from the rock. He started walking down the grassy slope toward the stream. Hello, the camp, Eldridge shouted. His voice echoed off the granite walls. The man in the tent stuck his head out. He saw them. He didn't reach for his gun. He stepped out, wiping his hands on a rag. He smiled. It was a wide, welcoming smile. The kind of smile that made you want to buy whatever he was selling. Kind eyes, Eldridge thought. Just like the wolf. He kept walking, leading the widow into the den. Chapter 15. The grass in the meadow was knee-high and green, a color that looked wrong after 3 days of gray rock and brown dust. It swished against Eldridge Sample's boots as he walked down the slope, a soft, wet sound that felt like a whisper in a library. He kept his hands away from his belt. He walked with a slight limp, exaggerating the stiffness in his knees, letting his shoulders slump. He wasn't the man who had tracked a ghost across the salt flats. He was just a hired hand who had run out of luck and water. Nora Vance walked beside him. She was doing her part without trying. Her dress was shredded at the hem, her face was a map of exhaustion, and her eyes were wide with a desperation that didn't need acting. Stay close, Eldridge murmured. Let him talk. Stark watched them come. He didn't drop the gold pan. He didn't reach for the Remington on his hip. He stood by the stream, water dripping from his hands, watching them with a curiosity that seemed entirely benign. He waited until they were 20 feet away before he spoke. You folks look like you took the wrong turn at Albuquerque, Stark said. His voice was deep, resonant. A preacher's voice, or a politician's. We took a wrong turn at the cairn, Eldridge said. He stopped. He wiped his mouth with a dirty sleeve. My horse, he's done. Tied him up the trail. Stark looked past them, scanning the ridge. He was checking for others. He was checking for a threat. Just the two of you? Stark asked. Just us, Nora said. Her voice shook. Please. We need water. Stark smiled. The skin around his eyes crinkled. They were blue eyes, pale and bright, set in a face that was tanned leather dark by the sun. Water is free, Stark said. He gestured to the stream. Best water in the territory. Melted snow. Help yourself. Nora went to the bank. She knelt. She drank from her cupped hands. Eldridge didn't kneel. He stood there, looking at the camp. Nice setup, Eldridge said. It's home, Stark said. For now. He swirled the pan one last time, then dumped the gravel back into the creek. He wiped his hands on his trousers. You came up the goat track, Stark said. That's a hard climb. We were looking for the pass, Eldridge said. The woman, she's looking for her husband. Said he came this way. Stark went still. Just for a second. A flicker of something behind the kind eyes, calculation maybe, or memory. Husband? Stark asked. He looked at Nora. Nora stood up. She wiped her mouth. She looked at Stark. She looked at the red shirt, the suspenders, the gun belt. Caleb, she said. Caleb Vance. Stark's face broke into a grin. It was a masterpiece of recognition. Caleb, Stark said. He slapped his thigh. Well, I'll be damned. You're Nora. You know him? She asked. She took a step forward. Know him? I partnered with him, Stark said. Down at the trading post. We rode up together. He talked about you every night. Said you were the prettiest thing in Ohio. Stark walked over. He stuck out a hand. It was calloused, the nails dirty, but the grip was warm. Name's Stark, he said. Short for nothing in particular. Nora took his hand. She let him shake it. Eldridge watched her. She was trembling, but she didn't pull away. She was holding onto the monster's paw. Where is he? Nora asked. Is he here? She looked at the tent. She looked at the mine entrance. Stark's smile faded. He put on a look of concern. It fit him like a cheap suit, a little loose in the shoulders, but serviceable. He ain't here, ma'am, Stark said. Where did he go? He left, Stark said. About a month ago. Maybe 5 weeks. Left. He got discouraged, Stark said. He sighed, shaking his head. Mining, it ain't like carpentry. You move a ton of rock for an ounce of color. Caleb, he wasn't built for it. The altitude got to him. And the work. Stark walked to the fire pit. A coffee pot was sitting on a flat rock near the coals. Coffee? Stark asked. It's fresh. Please, Eldridge said. Stark poured 2 tin cups. He handed one to Nora, one to Eldridge. We found some color, Stark said, gesturing to the sluice box. Enough to keep the lights on. But not the mother lode. Caleb, he got restless. He missed you. He said, Stark, I can't wait for the big strike. I got to build a life. He left. Nora asked again. Without you. I wanted to stay, Stark said. I got a feeling about this vein. But Caleb, he packed up. Took his share of the dust we found. Said he was heading for San Francisco. San Francisco. Said there was work there, Stark said. Building houses. Said he'd send for you once he got settled. He didn't write. No, Nora whispered. Well, the mail is slow, Stark said. And he might be on the road. It's a long ride to the coast. Eldridge sipped the coffee. It was good. Strong. Expensive beans. He walk? Eldridge asked. Stark looked at him. He sized Eldridge up. He saw the dust, the worn coat. He didn't see the badge that wasn't there. He saw a hireling. He walked, Stark said. Took the mule. Barnaby. That mule was the apple of his eye. That's a long walk, Eldridge said. To San Francisco. He planned to buy a horse in Barstow, Stark said. With his gold. Stark sat down on a log. He gestured for them to sit. I'm sorry you missed him, Stark said to Nora. He was a good man. Honest. A little soft for the high country, maybe, but he had heart. He had boots, Eldridge said. Stark looked at him sharp. What? We found a boot, Eldridge said. Down the trail. About 5 miles back. Worn through the sole. Looked like he changed them. Stark didn't blink. Yeah, Stark said smoothly. He bought new ones at the post. Hobnails. Said the old ones were hurting his feet. Must have tossed him on the way down. On the way down? Eldridge asked. We found it on the way up. Below the camp. He must have dropped it climbing, Stark said. He shrugged. Who keeps track of old leather? Stark looked at Nora. You look done in, Mrs. Vance. You hungry? I got beans. And I shot a goat yesterday. Fresh meat. A goat? Eldridge asked. Mountain goat, Stark said. Stringy, but it beats salt pork. He stood up. He walked to the tent. Let me get some plates, Stark said. He ducked inside. Eldridge looked at Nora. She was staring at the tent flap. Her face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. "He's lying," she whispered. "I know," Eldridge said softly. "Keep drinking the coffee. Keep nodding." He said Caleb took the mule. "Barnaby is dead in a ditch," Eldridge said. "Stark knows that. He shot him." "Why lie?" "Because the truth hangs him," Eldridge said. Stark came back out. He had tin plates and a skillet. He set them on the fire grate. "So," Stark said, looking at Eldridge, "you bring her all this way." "Found her on the salt flat," Eldridge said. "Horse was blown. She paid me to get her to the claim." "You a guide?" "I'm a drifter," Eldridge said. "Between jobs." "You looking for work?" "Always." "I could use a hand," Stark said. "Now that Caleb's gone. Shoring up the drift. Hauling rock. Pays well. Gold dust." "I don't like underground work," Eldridge said. "I like the sky." "Suit yourself." Stark started frying meat. It smelled good. Eldridge looked around the camp. He looked at the picketed horse. It was a big bay gelding. Brand on the hip. Circle T. "Nice horse," Eldridge said. "Bought him off a trader," Stark said. "Cost me 4 ounces of dust. But he's strong." "Shoed," Eldridge noted. "New iron." "Rock eats shoes," Stark said. "I keep him shod." Eldridge looked at the pack mule standing next to the horse. It was loaded. Panniers packed tight. "You going somewhere?" Eldridge asked. Stark paused with the skillet. "Thinking about it," Stark said. Veins pinching out. "Thinking about moving north. Maybe Oregon." "Leaving the claim?" "A bird in the hand," Stark said. "I got enough to retire. Why push my luck?" He looked at Nora. "You should eat," Stark said. "Then you can rest in the tent. I'll sleep by the fire." "Thank you," she said. "You're very kind." "Caleb was my partner," Stark said. "It's the least I can do." He dished out the meat. He handed a plate to Nora. She took it. She looked at the food. She looked at the man who had undoubtedly killed her husband. She forced a smile. Did he talk about the house?" she asked. "The one he was going to build?" "Every night," Stark said. "Talked about the porch. The rocking chairs. He loved you, ma'am. That was plain." Stark ate a piece of meat. He chewed with his mouth open. "He just didn't have the stomach for the mountain," Stark said. "Some men don't." Eldridge ate. He watched Stark. He watched the way the man moved. Confident. Relaxed. He had a gun on his hip, but he hadn't touched it. He didn't see them as a threat. He saw a tired woman and a broke cowboy. He saw loose ends that had walked into his parlor. "What about the cradle?" Eldridge asked. Stark looked up. "Cradle?" She said he built a cradle. For his sister. "Oh. Yeah. He mentioned it. Woodworking. Said he missed the smell of sawdust." Stark wiped his grease on his pants. "You folks can stay as long as you need," Stark said. "Rest up. Then I can point you toward the shortcut to San Bernardino. Much easier than the way you came." "Shortcut?" Eldridge asked. "Through the South Pass," Stark said. "Drops you right into the valley. Caleb took it." "Sounds good," Eldridge said. He finished his meat. He set the plate down. "Mind if I water my horse?" Eldridge asked. "I left him tied up the trail." "Go ahead," Stark said. "Bring him down. There's grass." Eldridge stood up. "Be right back," he said to Nora. He walked away from the fire. He walked up the slope toward the rock where he had left the bay. He felt Stark watching him. He felt the eyes on his back. He didn't turn around. He kept his shoulders slumped. He kept his hand away from the gun. But his mind was working. Stark was lying about the mule. He was lying about the boots. He was lying about the departure. And the pack mule by the tent was loaded. Stark wasn't thinking about moving north. He was already packed. He was leaving. Today. Tomorrow. He had cleaned out the claim. He had buried the partner. And he was ready to vanish. Until the widow showed up. Eldridge reached the bay horse. He untied the reins. "He's a wolf," Eldridge whispered to the horse. "And he thinks we're dinner." He led the horse back down. He had to wait. He couldn't start a fight now. Stark was rested, fed, and armed. Nora was in the line of fire. He had to wait for the dark. He had to wait for Stark to close his eyes. Or he had to find the proof that would make Nora pull the trigger herself. He walked back into the camp. Stark was pouring more coffee for Nora, playing the role of the grieving friend. Eldridge led the horse to the stream. He let it drink. He looked at the sluice box. The water ran clear. He looked at the mine entrance. It was dark, a black mouth in the hillside. "Caleb's in there," Eldridge thought. "Or under the tailings." He patted the bay's neck. "Drink up," Eldridge said. "It's going to be a long night." Chapter 16. The fire hissed, spitting a spark at the darkness that pressed in around the high meadow. Stark kicked a log back into the coals with the heel of a boot that looked too new for a man who claimed he was digging rock for a living. "San Francisco," Stark said again. He said it like it was a destination, not just a name on a map. "That's where the money is." Caleb figured it out about a week in. He said, "Stark, why am I breaking my back for dust when I could be framing houses for bankers?" Nora Vance sat on a crate near the warmth. She held her tin cup with both hands, staring into the black coffee like she was trying to read the grounds. "He likes building," she said softly. "He misses the smell of sawdust." "That's what he said," Stark agreed. He poured a splash of whiskey into his own cup from a silver flask. He'd sit right there, on that rock, and talk about joinery. Dovetails. Mortises. "I don't know much about wood, Mrs. Vance. I know rock." But Caleb, he made it sound like religion. Eldridge Sample leaned against the support post of the tent platform. He was in the shadows, outside the direct circle of light. He watched Stark work. The man was good. He didn't push too hard. He offered details, the woodworking, the homesickness that he knew Nora wanted to hear. He was painting a picture of a man who hadn't died, but had simply come to his senses and gone back to what he knew. "He didn't write," Nora said. "He always writes." "He was ashamed," Stark said. The word hung in the air, heavy and quiet. Nora looked up. "Ashamed?" "He came out here to be a prospector," Stark said. He sat down on the log, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a confidential rumble. "He spent your savings. He bought the mule. He bought the kit. He wanted to come back to you with a fortune. Instead, he found out he wasn't cut out for it." Stark looked at the mine entrance. "It's hard work, ma'am. It's dark. It's wet. You swing a pick for 10 hours, and you get nothing but blisters and a backache." Caleb, he started to fade. He looked at me one morning and said, "I can't go back empty-handed. I can't look her in the eye and tell her I failed." Nora flinched. "I wouldn't care. I just wanted him." "Men are proud," Stark said. "Stupid proud." He figured if he went to the coast, got a job, made some real money, then he could send for you. Then he could say, he succeeded. Eldridge watched Nora. He saw the tension in her shoulders loosen. She wanted to believe it. It was a better story than the one the mountains were telling. It was a story where Caleb was alive, working, maybe drinking a beer in a tavern by the bay, waiting for payday to buy a stamp. He took the mule? Nora asked. Took Barnaby, Stark lied smoothly. Loaded him up with his share of the dust we found in the creek. Wasn't a fortune, but it was enough for a train ticket and a month's rent. But the boot, Nora said. We found his boot. Stark waved a hand. Like I said. He bought new ones. Tossed the old ones. He was shedding his skin, Mrs. Vance. Leaving the failures behind. Stark stood up. He walked to the tent flap. You should sleep, Stark said. The tent is yours. Cot's comfortable enough. I'll take the ground. You're very generous, she said. Partners look out for each other's kin, Stark said. Caleb would do the same for me. Nora stood up. She looked at Eldridge. Her eyes were pleading. She wanted him to confirm it. She wanted him to say, yes, that sounds right. Your husband is alive. Eldridge didn't say anything. He just tipped his hat. She went into the tent. She dropped the flap. Stark watched the canvas close. The smile vanished from his face. It didn't fade, it just shut off like a lantern blown out. He looked at Eldridge. The kind eyes were gone. In their place was a flat, cold assessment. She's tired, Stark said. It's a long climb, Eldridge said. She believes me. She wants to, Eldridge said. That's half the work done for you. Stark took a drink of whiskey. He wiped his mouth. You don't believe me, Stark said. I'm paid to drive the wagon, Eldridge said. Not to believe the sermon. You ask a lot of questions about boots and mules. I notice things, Eldridge said. Like the mule tracks on the trail. What about them? Deep, Eldridge said. Going up. Didn't see any coming down. Stark looked at the fire. He took the south trail out. The one I told you about. Shortcut. You wouldn't see tracks on the north face. Must have been a heavy load, Eldridge said. To leave no sign. Gold is heavy. Stark walked to the fire. He kicked a log. Sparks flew up. You planning on staying long, Mr. Sample? Just tonight, Eldridge said. Horse needs a blow. Lady needs a rest. Then you head back. Then we head for San Francisco, Eldridge lied. If that's where Caleb is, that's where she goes. Stark relaxed. His shoulders dropped an inch. That's smart, Stark said. No sense looking for gold that ain't here. This vein, it's a teaser. Flash in the pan. I'm thinking of packing it in myself in a week or two. Retiring. Moving on, Stark said. Always another mountain. He finished his whiskey. I'm turning in, Stark said. You take the first watch. Or do you trust the mountain? I sleep light, Eldridge said. Stark nodded. He grabbed a blanket from his saddle roll. He lay down by the fire, his back to the tent, his hand resting near the Remington. Good night, Sample. Night. Eldridge didn't lie down. He sat on the log. He rolled a cigarette. He watched the tent. He could hear Nora moving inside, the rustle of fabric. She was probably holding the locket. Probably praying. Thanking God that Caleb was a carpenter in a city and not a corpse in a canyon. He looked at Stark. The man was breathing steady, feigning sleep. Eldridge smoked. The story held water if you didn't look at the bucket too close. But the bucket was full of holes. The dead mule in the ravine. Stark hadn't mentioned shooting it. He said Caleb took it. The boot. Worn through. Stark said Caleb bought new ones. But the trader said Caleb bought the boots before he went up the mountain. Why wear the old ones out and carry the new ones, only to switch halfway up and throw the old ones away? And the money. Caleb flashed gold at the trading post. Stark said he spent it on supplies. But the ledger said he bought on credit. Stark was lying. He was lying with the ease of a man who had practiced the speech in the mirror for a month. But why let them live? Because killing a woman and a drifter in camp was messy. It left bodies. It left evidence. Better to send them on a wild goose chase to San Francisco. Let the desert take them on the way down. Or let them ride off and disappear into the city, chasing a phantom. Eldridge looked at the mine entrance. He's in there, Eldridge thought. Or he's under the tailings. He needed proof. Nora wouldn't leave without proof, but she wouldn't fight without it either. She was hooked on the hope. Eldridge touched his pocket. He felt the brass casing he had found in the pass. He looked at Stark's gun belt, lying on the ground next to his hand. The loops were full of .44 cartridges. Same caliber. Eldridge waited. He waited for the moon to cross the sky. He waited for the fire to die down to embers. He stood up. He moved silent. He wasn't going to the mine. Not yet. He was going to check the tack. He walked to the picket line where Stark's horse and mule were tied. The animals shifted, smelling him. He checked the panniers on the mule. They were packed tight. He undid a strap. He slipped his hand inside. Heavy. He felt the shapes. Cans. Tools. And a canvas sack that felt like it was filled with lead shot. Gold dust. Stark wasn't mining anymore. He was packed. He was ready to ride the minute they left. Eldridge moved to the horse. He checked the saddlebags. He felt something hard and flat. A book. He pulled it out. It was a small leather notebook. He opened it in the moonlight. It wasn't a ledger. It was a diary. He squinted at the writing. It was neat, precise. A carpenter's script. June 12th. Found the trace. Quartz vein running deep. Stark says it looks good. I miss Nora. The mountains are cold at night. June 14th. Barnaby is struggling. The climb is hard. Stark pushes the pace. He drinks too much. June 20th. We hit the pocket. It's real. Gold. Actual gold. I can build the house. I can bring her home. The entry stopped there. Eldridge closed the book. He put it in his pocket. Caleb hadn't left. He had found the gold on June 20th. And he had stopped writing. Eldridge looked back at the camp. Stark was still sleeping, the innocent sleep of the wealthy. Eldridge walked back to the log. He sat down. He had the proof. Now, he just had to deliver the verdict. But he couldn't do it while Nora was dreaming of San Francisco. He had to wait for the morning. He had to let the sun shine on the lie. Sleep well, Stark, Eldridge whispered. Tomorrow is payday. Chapter 17. The sun finally gave up on the day, dropping behind the jagged rim of the crater, and leaving the camp in a twilight that felt heavy and blue. Stark threw another log on the fire. Pine pitch popped, sending a spark spiraling up into the dark. It gets cold fast, Stark said. Up this high. Thin air don't hold the heat. He sat on a crate, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. He held a tin cup of coffee with both hands, looking at Nora Vance across the flames. He looked relaxed, like a man entertaining guests on his front porch, instead of two strangers who had walked out of the desert with questions he didn't want to answer. "Tell me again," Nora said. She was sitting on the log, the blanket Eldridge had given her pulled tight around her shoulders. "About when he left." "It was a Tuesday," Stark said. He didn't hesitate. "Or maybe a Wednesday. Days bleed together up here." But the weather was turning. Wind was coming out of the north. He took a sip of coffee. "Caleb was quiet," Stark said. "For days. He'd sit right there where you're sitting, and he'd stare at the fire. He wouldn't eat. Wouldn't talk. Just stared." "He was depressed," Nora offered. She wanted the story to fit. She wanted the pieces to lock together, so she didn't have to look at the other picture forming in her head. "He was homesick," Stark corrected gently. "He talked about Ohio. About the trees. Said he missed the color green. Said this rock, it was too hard. Said he couldn't shape it." "He's a carpenter," Nora said. "He works with wood. Wood is soft." "Exactly," Stark said. "Mining is breaking things. Carpentry is building things. Caleb, he didn't like breaking things." Eldridge Sample stood back from the fire, leaning against the support post of the tent platform. He held his coffee cup, but he wasn't drinking. He was watching Stark's hands. Stark had big hands. Strong. But they were smooth for a miner. No crushed fingernails. No fresh scars from slipping drills. "So he just packed up?" Eldridge asked. Stark looked at him. The smile didn't waver, but the eyes got a little flatter. "Packed up," Stark said. "Took his share of the flour. Took the mule." Said Stark, "I'm done. I'm going to the coast. I'm going to find a place where the ocean meets the land and build a house." "San Francisco," Nora whispered. "That's the place," Stark said. He had a shine in his eye when he said it. Like he was seeing it already. "Did he have money?" Eldridge asked. "He had his poke," Stark said. "We split what we found. Wasn't a fortune, but it was traveling money. Enough to get him a room and a hot meal." "He didn't have a horse," Eldridge said. "He had the mule," Stark said. "Barnaby. He said he'd ride him until he could trade up." Eldridge didn't say anything. He thought about the dead mule in the ravine. The bullet hole in the skull. The stripped pack saddle. Stark was lying. He was lying smoothly, painting a picture of a man walking away into a sunset that didn't exist. But Nora was buying it. She leaned forward, her face flushed in the firelight. "He's alive," she said. "He's in San Francisco. That's why he didn't write. He's traveling. Or he's working." "That's the likely truth," Stark said. "He probably got there, got busy, figured he'd send for you once the roof was up. That sounds like him, don't it?" "Yes," she said. "He wants things perfect." "There you go." Stark poured more coffee into her cup. "He's fine, Mrs. Vance. He's a resourceful man." "You said he was soft," Eldridge said. Stark paused. "I said he wasn't built for rock. That don't mean he can't handle a road." "The road to the coast is 300 miles of desert," Eldridge said. "For a man on a mule." "He had water," Stark said. "He had a map." "Did you give him the map?" "I drew it for him," Stark said. "Showed him the water holes. The way stations." Eldridge looked at the tent. He looked at the loaded panniers stacked by the entrance. "You seem packed," Eldridge said. "Thinking about moving on myself," Stark said. "Like I said. Veins thinning out. Gets lonely up here without a partner." "Lonely," Eldridge repeated. Man needs conversation, Stark said. Needs to hear a voice that ain't his own echo. He looked at Nora. His gaze lingered on her face, then dropped to her hands. You should sleep, Stark said. Take the tent. It's got a cot. I'll take the ground. I can't take your bed, she said. I insist, Stark said. Caleb would want you comfortable. He stood up. He walked to the tent flap and held it open. Go on, he said. Rest. Tomorrow, we'll get you pointed west. You can catch a stage in Barstow. Be in San Francisco in a week. Nora stood up. She looked at Eldridge. She looked confused, caught between the relief of the story and the hard reality of the man standing in the shadows. Go, Eldridge said. Sleep. She walked to the tent. She ducked inside. Stark let the flap drop. He turned back to the fire. He looked at Eldridge. The smile was gone now. It was just a look of assessment. You don't believe me, Stark said softly. I believe you're a good storyteller, Eldridge said. Stories are what people need, Stark said. She needs to think he's building a house. Why take that away from her? Because waiting for a ghost is a hard way to live. Better than grieving for a corpse, Stark said. He sat back down on the crate. He took out a pouch of tobacco. He rolled a cigarette. His fingers were nimble, quick. You're a cynic, friend, Stark said. You look at a gift horse, and you count the teeth. I look at a man who says he's a miner but has soft hands, Eldridge said. And I look at a camp that's packed to leave the same day we show up. Stark lit the cigarette. He blew smoke at the stars. Coincidence, Stark said. World's full of 'em. He patted the Remington on his hip. You sleep by the fire, Stark said. I sleep light. Don't go wandering around in the dark. Lots of holes up here. Mine shafts. Drop-offs. Man could fall and never be found. I'll watch my step, Eldridge said. Do that. Stark finished his coffee. He threw the dregs into the fire. It hissed. He stood up and walked to his bedroll, which was laid out near the sluice box. He lay down, keeping his gun belt on. He pulled a blanket over himself. Night, Stark said. Eldridge sat by the dying fire. He watched the tent. He watched the lump of the man by the stream. The story was good. It was neat. It covered all the holes. Except for the mule. And the boots. And the fact that Stark was wearing a belt that didn't match his trousers. Eldridge had seen it when Stark stood up. A leather belt, too finely tooled for a drifter. And a silver buckle. It caught the firelight. It was a small thing. A detail. But the details were what hung you. Eldridge poured the last of the coffee into the dirt. He didn't want the caffeine. He needed to be calm. He moved to the shadows of the rock wall. He sat down, the Springfield across his lap. He wasn't going to sleep. He was going to wait. He was going to wait for Nora to wake up and realize that the man in the tent wasn't her husband, and the man by the stream wasn't her friend. And then he was going to ask Stark about the buckle. Chapter 18. The morning light hit the high peaks first, turning the gray granite into a dazzling white that hurt the eyes, before sliding down into the bowl of the cirque to warm the frost off the grass. Eldridge Sample sat up. His back popped, a sound like dry twigs snapping under a boot. The fire was dead, nothing but white ash and a few charred ends of pine. He rubbed his face, feeling the grit of the mountain air on his skin. Stark was already up. The miner was standing by the sluice box, breaking a layer of thin ice that had formed over the water in the trough. He was whistling. A cheerful, mindless tune that didn't fit the silence of the high country. He wasn't wearing his coat. He was in his red flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, suspenders hanging down around his hips. And the belt. It was wide leather, tooled with a pattern of oak leaves. The buckle was silver. Not nickel or tin, but heavy sterling that caught the sun and threw it back. It was oval, with a raised edge and initials engraved in the center. Eldridge watched him. He watched the way the belt hung on Stark's hips. It was a little too big. Stark had punched a new hole in the leather to cinch it tight. "Morning," Stark called out. He didn't look around. He just kept clearing the ice. "Coffee's on." "Left it near the coals." Eldridge stood up. He picked up his hat and dusted it against his leg. "You're up early," Eldridge said. "Early bird gets the color," Stark said. "Besides, cold wakes you up better than coffee." Eldridge walked to the fire pit. The pot was there, warm to the touch. He poured a cup. He didn't drink it. He held it, letting the warmth seep into his fingers. The tent flap opened. Nora Vance stepped out. She looked worse than she had the night before. Her eyes were puffy, red-rimmed. She hadn't slept. She had just lain there in the dark, listening to the wind and trying to believe the lies Stark had told her. She looked at Eldridge. Then she looked at Stark. Stark turned. He smiled. It was the same smile from yesterday. Open, friendly, the smile of a man with nothing to hide. "Morning, Mrs. Vance," Stark said. "Hope the cot was comfortable. It ain't a feather bed, but it beats the ground." "It was fine," she whispered. "I'll get breakfast going," Stark said. "Got some bacon left. And flour for biscuits." He walked toward the fire. He moved with a confident swagger, his thumbs hooked in the belt. Nora watched him come. She looked at his face. She looked at his shirt. Then she looked at his waist. She stopped breathing. Eldridge saw it happen. He saw the color drain out of her face, leaving her skin the color of old parchment. Her hand went to her throat. Stark didn't notice. He knelt by the fire, reaching for the skillet. "You like your bacon crisp?" Stark asked. Caleb, he liked it burnt. Said it reminded him of home cooking. "Where did you get that?" Nora asked. Her voice was a thread, barely audible over the rush of the stream. Stark looked up. "Get what?" She pointed. Her finger was shaking so hard she couldn't hold it steady. "The buckle," she said. Stark looked down at his waist. He touched the silver oval. "Oh, this?" He shrugged. "Nice, ain't it? Silver. Solid." "That's Caleb's," she said. The silence that followed was heavy. It drowned out the water and the wind. Stark didn't flinch. He didn't look guilty. He looked thoughtful. "Well, yes, ma'am," Stark said. "It was his. I suppose I should have mentioned it." "You're wearing his belt," she said. The shock was turning into something else. Horror. "My old one broke," Stark said easily. "Buckle snapped right off when I was hauling rock. Caleb, he saw I was in a bind. He gave it to me." "He gave it to you." "Traded it, actually," Stark said. He stood up. He hooked his thumbs in the belt again, framing the buckle like a trophy. When he was packing to leave, he was short on cash. Needed supplies for the trip. Jerky. Grain for the mule. I gave him what I had, and he gave me the belt. Said he didn't need anything fancy for the road. "Liar," Nora said. Stark's smile slipped. Just a fraction at the corners. "Now, Mrs. Vance," Stark said, his voice dropping an octave. "That's a hard word. I'm trying to be hospitable here." "He wouldn't trade that," she said. Her voice rose, cracking. "He wouldn't trade it for jerky. He wouldn't trade it for gold." She took a step toward him. "I gave him that buckle," she said. "On our wedding day. I had it made. In Columbus. Those are his initials. CV." Stark looked down at the buckle. He traced the letters with a dirty thumb. "Is that right?" Stark said. "CV. I thought maybe it stood for Chula Vista or something." "Never asked." "He wore it every day," she said. "He said it was his luck. He said as long as he had it, he was connected to me." "Men say things to their wives," Stark said. "Out here, sentiment is heavy. It weighs you down. When a man is hungry, or when he needs to travel light, silver is just metal." "Take it off," she said. Stark looked at her. He looked at Eldridge. Eldridge hadn't moved. He was standing 10 feet away, holding the coffee cup. His coat was open. The Colt was clear. "You heard the lady," Eldridge said. Stark let out a sigh. It was a sound of disappointment, like a parent dealing with a petulant child. "You folks are confused," Stark said. "Grief does that. It makes you see things crooked." "I see a belt that doesn't fit you," Eldridge said. "And I see a story that doesn't fit the facts." "I told you the facts," Stark said. He left. He traded the belt. He took the mule. "The mule is dead," Eldridge said. Stark froze. His hand drifted toward the Remington on his hip. "What?" "Barnaby," Eldridge said. "He's at the bottom of the ravine, about 5 miles back. Shot in the head. We found him yesterday." Stark stared at him. The kind eyes weren't kind anymore. They were flat. Cold. The mask was slipping, revealing the predator underneath. "You tracked us," Stark said. It wasn't a question. "We tracked a man walking in boots that were worn through," Eldridge said. "We tracked a mule that went lame. And we tracked a partner who rode a horse with new shoes." Eldridge tossed the coffee cup aside. It clattered against the rocks. "Caleb never left," Eldridge said. "Did he?" Stark looked at Nora. He saw the realization hitting her. He saw the horror turning into hate. "He left," Stark insisted. But the conviction was gone. It was just a reflex now. He walked out. Without his belt. Nora screamed. Without his mule. Without his boots. He bought new boots. Stark yelled back. "I told you." "And he traded his wedding gift for jerky?" Eldridge stepped forward. "A man who builds cradles doesn't sell his wedding ring for a snack, Stark. And he doesn't leave his luck behind." Stark backed up. He bumped into the crate he had been sitting on the night before. "You're calling me a liar," Stark said. "In my own camp." "I'm calling you a killer," Eldridge said. "You ain't got no proof," Stark said. "Just a dead mule and a belt buckle. That ain't proof. That's circumstance." "Where is he?" Nora demanded. She lunged at him. Stark shoved her back. Hard. She stumbled, falling into the dirt. "Get back." Stark snarled. "You crazy witch." Eldridge moved. He didn't draw. He stepped in between them. "Don't touch her," Eldridge said. Stark looked at Eldridge. He measured the distance. He measured the man. "You think you can take me?" Stark asked. "I know who you are. You're just a saddle tramp working for wages." "I'm the man who found the boot," Eldridge said. "And I'm the man who's going to find the body." Stark laughed. It was a short, sharp bark. "Good luck," Stark said. "This mountain is full of holes. You could search for 100 years and never find a bone." He had admitted it. Without saying the words, he had admitted it. Nora made a sound. A low keen of anguish. She sat in the dirt, staring at the buckle on the killer's waist. "Why?" she whispered. "Because he was weak," Stark said. He looked down at her with contempt. He was whining about home. About you. He was slowing me down. And the gold don't split 3 ways. 3 ways? Eldridge asked. Me, him, and the mule, Stark said. Mule eats too much. He rested his hand on his gun. Now, Stark said, we got a problem. I got a claim to work. And you two are trespassing. We're leaving, Eldridge said. Are you? Stark smiled. With that story? I don't think so. We're leaving, Eldridge repeated. And we're taking you with us. To where? The sheriff in San Bernardino. He's a friend of mine. We play poker. To the hanging tree, Eldridge said. Stark tensed. His fingers twitched over the butt of the Remington. Draw, Stark said. Go ahead. Try it. Eldridge looked at him. He looked at the positioning. Stark was backed against the crate. The sun was in his eyes. But Nora was on the ground between them. If shooting started, she was in the crossfire. I'm not going to draw, Eldridge said. Coward, Stark spat. I'm going to wait, Eldridge said. Until you make a move. And when you do, I'm going to break you. Stark sneered. You're bluffing. Am I? Eldridge stood relaxed, his hands at his sides. He watched Stark's eyes. He watched the muscle jump in Stark's jaw. The tension stretched. The wind whistled through the tent ropes. Stark didn't draw. He was a back shooter, an opportunist. He didn't like a fair fight. He liked the odds tilted. Fine, Stark said. You want to stand there? Stand there. I got work to do. He turned his back. He walked toward the mine entrance. It was a calculated insult. A dare. He's going for a rifle, Eldridge thought. Or he's going to ground. Eldridge grabbed Nora. He pulled her up. Get to the rocks, Eldridge whispered. Now. She looked at him. She looked at Stark's retreating back. He has the belt, she said. He has a shovel, Eldridge said. Move. He pushed her toward the cover of the boulder field. Stark disappeared into the black mouth of the mine. He's cornered, Eldridge said. And he knows it. He drew the Colt. The interrogation hadn't started yet. This was just the opening argument. And the only evidence that mattered now was who was left standing when the sun went down. Chapter 19. The sun finally quit the sky, leaving the cirque in a darkness so absolute it felt like being buried in coal. The wind died down, and the silence that took its place was heavy, amplified by the thin air. Eldridge Sample sat on a boulder 10 feet from the black mouth of the mine. He wasn't hiding. He was just part of the stone. He held the Colt in his lap, his thumb resting on the hammer, his breathing shallow and quiet. 50 yards back, in the shelter of the rock fall, Nora Vance was asleep. She hadn't wanted to sleep. She had wanted to hold the rifle and stare at the hole in the hill until her husband walked out. But exhaustion is a heavy blanket. It had pulled her under an hour ago, leaving her curled in a ball, clutching the lapels of Eldridge's coat. You awake, Stark? Eldridge asked. He didn't shout. He spoke in a conversational tone, letting the acoustics of the box canyon carry his voice into the drift. I'm awake, Stark's voice floated back out. It sounded hollow, tinny. I'm sitting on a case of dynamite, Sample. You come in here shooting, we all go up. I don't need to shoot, Eldridge said. I got time. I got water. You got a hole in the ground. I got food, Stark said. I got jerky. You got Caleb's jerky, Eldridge corrected. And it's dry. You'll get thirsty before I get bored. Silence from the mine. Just the drip of water somewhere deep in the rock. Eldridge rolled a cigarette. He didn't light it. He just held it, smelling the tobacco. Tell me about the mule, Eldridge said. I told you. He took it. The mule had a split hoof, Eldridge said. Split right to the coronet. That doesn't happen overnight. That happens after a week of walking on granite without shoes. He wrapped it, Stark said. The lie was slower this time. Less confident. You can't wrap a split hoof, Eldridge said. You shoot it. Which is what you did. You shot Barnaby in the ravine. Then you stripped the pack. He left the pack, Stark said. Too heavy. He left the tent, Eldridge said. He left the saw. A carpenter doesn't leave his saw, Stark. That's his living. He'd carry that saw if he had to crawl. He was crazy, Stark yelled. The echo bounced around the clearing. He wasn't thinking straight. Gold fever makes you crazy. You're the one with the fever, Eldridge said. You're the one wearing a dead man's belt. He gave it to me. Why? Eldridge asked. Why would he give you his wedding gift? Did you ask for it? Or did you just take it off him after he stopped moving? I traded for it. What did you have to trade, Stark? You were broke. You had an unshod horse and a thirst. Eldridge stood up. He walked to the edge of the mine entrance. He stayed to the side, out of the line of fire. Here's the truth, Eldridge said. You got up here. You found the color. You realized it wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to fix your problems. And you realized splitting it meant you were still broke. That ain't how it happened. So you waited, Eldridge said. You waited until he was in the hole, swinging that pick, making noise. You waited until his back was turned. Shut up. Did he look at you? Eldridge asked. When you pulled the trigger? Or did you do it from behind? Like a coward. A sound from the mine. A boot scraping on rock. Stark was moving. You think you know everything, Stark hissed. He was closer now. Just inside the entrance. You think you can read a trail and know a man's soul. I know you killed him, Eldridge said. And I know you're scared. Because you know I'm not Caleb Vance. I don't build cradles. I ain't scared of you. Then come out. I come out, you shoot me. I won't shoot, Eldridge said. Not unless you make me. I want to take you back. I want you to tell the sheriff in San Bernardino what you did. I want you to tell the widow. She knows, Stark said. She knows he was weak. She knows you're a liar. Eldridge holstered the Colt. He held his hands out, empty. Come out, Stark. No guns. Man to man. You convince me I'm wrong, I walk away. It was a bait. A trap baited with ego. Stark thought he was tougher. He thought he was smarter. He thought Eldridge was just a cowboy. The gravel crunched. Stark stepped out of the blackness. He blinked in the starlight. He still had the Remington in his holster, but his hand was hovering over it. He looked at Eldridge. He looked for Nora. Where's the girl? Stark asked. Sleeping, Eldridge said. Dreaming about her husband coming home. Stark sneered. He ain't coming home. He's part of the mountain now. So he is dead. Stark froze. He realized he'd slipped. He realized the conversation was over. He went for the gun. It was a fast draw, fueled by panic. His hand slapped the leather. Eldridge didn't draw. He stepped in. He moved inside Stark's reach. He clamped his left hand over the cylinder of the Remington, jamming it into the holster. Stark grunted, trying to jerk the gun free. He couldn't. Eldridge had the leverage. Stark let go of the gun. He reached for his boot. The knife. He pulled a Bowie knife from his boot top. The blade flashed in the starlight. He swung it up, aiming for Eldridge's gut. Eldridge caught his wrist. He caught it with his right hand. He squeezed. He twisted. Stark screamed. He tried to drive the knife home, using his weight. Eldridge turned his hip. He used Stark's momentum. He wrenched the arm backward against the joint. Crack. The sound was loud, like a dry branch snapping. Stark shrieked. The knife fell from his fingers. He dropped to his knees, clutching his arm. His hand flopped at an unnatural angle. My wrist. Stark howled. You broke my wrist. Eldridge kicked him in the chest. Stark went over backward, sprawling in the dirt. Eldridge stood over him. He drew the Colt now. He cocked it. Quiet, Eldridge said. Stark whimpered, cradling his broken arm against his chest. He looked up at Eldridge with eyes that were wide and wet with pain. You said no guns, Stark gasped. I lied, Eldridge said. Like you. He reached down and pulled the Remington from Stark's holster. He tossed it into the creek. He kicked the knife away. Get up, Eldridge said. I can't, the pain. Get up or I drag you. Stark scrambled to his feet, swaying. He looked at the mine entrance. He's in there, Stark whispered. Ain't he? Yeah, Stark said. He's in there. Show me. I can't go back in there. His eyes, they're open. Walk, Eldridge said. He marched Stark toward the black hole. Nora stirred in the rocks. She sat up. She saw the two men standing by the mine. Eldridge, she called. It's over, Eldridge said. We got him. He pushed Stark into the tunnel. Light the lantern, Eldridge ordered. Stark fumbled with a match, striking it one-handed against the rock wall. He lit a kerosene lantern hanging on a timber. The yellow light flared, pushing back the shadows. The drift went back 20 feet. It ended in a wall of gray quartz. And a pile of rubble. Where? Eldridge asked. Stark pointed to the rubble pile with his good hand. Under the tailings, Stark said. I didn't have time to dig a proper hole. Eldridge looked at the pile of rock. He looked at the shovel, leaning against the wall. Start digging, Eldridge said. My arm is broke. You got one good hand, Eldridge said. Use it. Or I break the other one. Stark picked up the shovel. He started to dig, awkward and slow, tears running down his face into his beard. Eldridge watched. He waited for the truth to be uncovered, one shovelful of rock at a time. Chapter 20. The sound of the shovel biting into the loose rock was a rhythmic, grinding noise that echoed off the walls of the drift. Scrape. Lift. Thud. Stark worked one-handed. His broken left wrist was cradled against his chest, throbbing in time with his heartbeat, but his right hand drove the spade with a desperate, jerky energy. He was sweating, the grime on his face turning to mud, his eyes darting to Eldridge Sample, then back to the pile of tailings. He's deep, Stark wheezed. I put a lot of rock on him. Keep digging, Eldridge said. Eldridge stood by the lantern, the Colt hanging loose in his hand. He wasn't looking at Stark. He was watching Nora Vance. She stood near the entrance, just inside the circle of yellow light. She was holding the wall for support, her fingers digging into the rough timber shoring. She wasn't crying. She was staring at the pile of rubble with a terrible, unblinking intensity, waiting for the mountain to give him back. Why? She whispered. It wasn't a question for Stark. It was a question for the universe. Stark stopped. He leaned on the shovel, gasping. I didn't mean to, Stark said. He looked at her, pleading. It just happened. We found the pocket. Just a small vein. Quartz stringer. It wasn't the mother lode, but it was rich. Rich enough to kill for, Eldridge said. Rich enough to leave, Stark said. That's all I wanted. To leave. I'm 50 years old. I got nothing but a bad back and a horse I don't own. Caleb, he had a wife. He had a trade. He could go back to building houses. So you decided he didn't need the gold, Eldridge said. He wanted to split it, Stark said. 50-50. That was the deal. But 50% of enough ain't enough. It's just surviving. I didn't want to survive anymore. I wanted to live. Dig, Eldridge said. Stark went back to work. He shoved the blade into the pile. Thump. The sound changed. It wasn't metal on stone. It was metal on leather. Stark froze. He pulled the shovel back. There, Stark whispered. He didn't want to clear the rest. He stepped back, dropping the shovel. Eldridge moved forward. He holstered the Colt. He picked up the shovel. Step back, Eldridge told Stark. Against the wall. Stark moved. He huddled against the rock, cradling his arm. Eldridge scraped the stones away gently. He moved a slab of granite. He brushed away the dust. A boot appeared. It was a hobnailed boot. New leather, but scuffed from the climb. Eldridge cleared more. A leg. Pant leg of canvas. A shirt. He uncovered the back. Caleb Vance was lying face down. He was curled slightly, as if he were sleeping or protecting something. His head was turned to the side, cheek resting on the cold stone floor. He looked exactly like the picture in the locket, only thinner. The beard was longer, matted with dust. The eyes were closed. And in the center of his back, right between the shoulder blades, was a dark, ragged hole. The shirt was stained black around it. Shot in the back, Eldridge said. While he was working. He pointed to the pickaxe, lying next to the body. Caleb's hand was still near the handle. Nora made a sound. A small choke noise. She let go of the wall and walked forward. Her legs were stiff, jerky. She knelt in the dirt. She didn't touch the blood. She touched his face. She brushed the hair from his forehead. Caleb, she said. He didn't answer. He was cold. He had been cold for a month. She looked at his hand. The left hand. It was rough, scarred from the rocks. He's wearing his ring, she said softly. She touched the plain gold band on his finger. He didn't trade it, she said. She looked up at Stark. You lied. Stark pressed himself into the stone. I didn't take the ring. Bad luck to take a ring. But you took the belt, Eldridge said. And the mule. And the gold. I needed the money, Stark said. To get out. To get to the coast. You didn't go to the coast, Eldridge said. You stayed. You sat right here on top of him and kept digging. There was more. Stark yelled. I thought there was more. I couldn't leave it. Greed makes you stupid, Eldridge said. You killed the goose, but you couldn't find the rest of the eggs. Nora stood up. She looked at Stark. She wasn't the woman who had fainted on the salt flat. She was a woman who had walked through hell to find a grave. He was building a future, she said. He wrote me. He said he found it for us. He found it, Stark said. He swung the pick that opened the vein. He was happy, Mrs. Vance. He was smiling. He was smiling when you shot him, she asked. He didn't know, Stark said quickly. He didn't suffer. One shot. Lights out. It was merciful. Merciful, she repeated. She looked at the shovel Eldridge was holding. Give it to me, she said. Eldridge looked at her. Nora. Give me the shovel. Eldridge hesitated. Then he handed it to her. She took it. It was heavy for her, but she gripped it with both hands. She turned toward Stark. Stark saw it coming. He tried to scramble away, sliding along the wall. No. Stark screamed. Sample. Stop her. Eldridge didn't move. He leaned against a timber support and rolled a cigarette. Nora raised the shovel. She looked at Stark, cowering in the dirt. She looked at the man who had eaten her husband's food and worn his belt. She swung. She didn't hit him with the blade. She hit him with the flat of the metal. She brought it down on his legs. Clang. Stark howled. He curled into a ball, protecting his head. She hit him again. On the shoulder. He was a good man, she screamed. Whack. He trusted you. Whack. She hit him until her arms gave out. She dropped the shovel. It clattered on the stone. She stood there, breathing hard, her chest heaving. She looked at Eldridge. I want him to carry him, she said. Carry who? Caleb, she said. I want him to carry Caleb out. I want him to feel the weight. Eldridge nodded. He lit his cigarette. He'll carry him, Eldridge said. He walked over to Stark. He grabbed the man by the collar and hauled him up. You heard the lady, Eldridge said. My arm. Stark sobbed. You got a shoulder, Eldridge said. And you got legs. Pick him up. Stark looked at the body. He looked at the dead man he had buried to forget. I can't, Stark whispered. Eldridge drew the Colt. He cocked it. Pick him up, Eldridge said. Or stay here with him. Stark moved. He stumbled to the body. He struggled, using his good arm, grunting with effort and pain. He got Caleb's arm over his shoulder. He heaved. He lifted the dead man. The weight bowed him. Caleb's head lolled against Stark's cheek. Walk, Eldridge said. They walked out of the mine. Stark went first, staggering under the burden of his crime. Nora followed, her hand on the gold ring on the dead man's finger. Eldridge brought up the rear. He watched them emerge into the starlight. The mystery was solved. The trail ended here, at a hole in the ground that paid out in lead instead of gold. Put him down, Eldridge said when they reached the grass. Stark lowered the body gently. He collapsed next to it, gasping. Nora knelt by her husband. She straightened his clothes. She closed his eyes properly. We take him home, she asked. Ohio is a long way, Eldridge said. In the heat, he won't make it. She looked at the mountains. She looked at the stream. He liked the view, she said. He wrote about the stars. We bury him here, Eldridge said. Deep. Under the stones. Where the wolves can't get him. She nodded. And him. She pointed at Stark. He goes to California, Eldridge said. To the law. He wanted to go to the coast. We're going to take him. Eldridge looked at Stark. Get up, partner, Eldridge said. You got a grave to dig. Stark looked at his broken wrist. He looked at the shovel, lying in the mine mouth. With one hand? Stark asked. Takes twice as long, Eldridge said. Gives you time to think. Eldridge sat on a rock. He watched the man dig. He watched the widow mourn. A good man was gone. Chapter 21. The grave wasn't deep enough for a Christian burial, but it was deep enough to keep the wind from stealing the bones. Stark dropped the last shovel of rocks onto the mound. He leaned on the handle, gasping for air, his broken wrist cradled against his chest in a sling made from a torn shirt sleeve. He looked like a man who had been hollowed out, leaving nothing but sweat and pain inside the red flannel shirt. "Done?" Stark wheezed. Eldridge Sample walked to the head of the grave. He picked up a large, flat piece of granite. He wedged it into the loose earth. It wasn't a headstone, it was just a marker. A way to say that something happened here, besides gravity. Nora Vance stood on the other side. She wasn't crying. The tears had stopped back in the mine. She looked at the pile of stones. She looked at the mountains. "He wanted a view," she said. "He got one," Eldridge said. She knelt. She reached out and touched the cold stone. She didn't say a prayer. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just rested her hand there for a second, feeling the finality of it. Then she stood up. She walked over to Stark. Stark flinched. He expected another hit with the shovel. "The belt," Nora said. Stark looked down at his waist. I can't undo it." With one hand. "Figure it out." Stark fumbled with the buckle. His fingers were slick with sweat and dirt. He grunted, twisting the leather. It took him a minute, but he got it loose. He pulled the belt free. He held it out. Nora took it. She felt the heavy silver buckle. She traced the initials CV with her thumb. She didn't put it on. She coiled it tight and put it in her pocket. "Get on the mule," she said to Stark. "The mule." Stark looked at the pack animal. "It ain't saddled." "Then you ride bareback," she said. "Or you walk. I don't care." Eldridge took the rope. He tied Stark's good hand to the mule's halter ring, then tied his feet together under the animal's belly once Stark had scrambled up. "That's tight," Stark complained. "It's secure," Eldridge said. He walked to the bay horse. He tightened the cinch. He mounted up. "You take the horse," Eldridge said to Nora. "I'll walk." "No," she said. "We share. Like before." Eldridge looked at her. She wasn't the woman who had fainted on the salt flat. She was thinner, harder. Her dress was a rag, her boots were held together with deer hide, but she stood straight. "Get on," he said. He pulled her up. They rode out of the cirque. They left the mine, the tent and the grave behind. They rode past the sluice box where the water ran clear and cold, washing away the gold that nobody was going to spend. The descent was easier than the climb, but it was quiet. They reached the foothills by late afternoon. The heat returned, wrapping around them like a wool blanket. "There's a trail," Eldridge said, pointing west. "Leads to the stage road. Takes you straight into San Bernardino." "I know," she said. "Stark goes to the sheriff," Eldridge said. "You tell him everything. Show him the belt. Show him the broken wrist. Tell him where to find the body, if he wants to look." "I will." "And you?" Eldridge asked. "You going home?" "To Ohio." Nora looked east, back toward the desert they had crossed. Back toward the life she had left. "No," she said. "There's nothing there. Just an empty shop." She looked west. Toward the haze that hid the ocean. "Caleb wanted to go to the coast," she said. "He wanted to see the water. He wanted to build houses where it doesn't snow. He didn't make it." "I did," she said. Eldridge stopped the horse at the fork in the trail. One way led west to California. The other led south, back to the open range. He dismounted. "This is where I get off," Eldridge said. "You're not coming to town?" Towns make me itch, Eldridge said. And I don't like explaining broken wrists to lawmen. He handed her the reins. The horse is yours, Eldridge said. For the miles. I can't take your horse. He's tired of me anyway, Eldridge said. Sell him when you get to the coast. Or keep him. He likes apples. She looked at him. She looked at the reins in her hand. You saved me, she said. I gave you a ride, Eldridge said. You saved yourself. He walked over to the mule. He checked the knots on Stark's legs. Behave, Eldridge told Stark. She's got the rifle now. And she knows how to use a shovel. Stark looked at the ground. He didn't say anything. He was done talking. Nora sat on the bay horse. She looked natural there now. What will you do? She asked. Walk, Eldridge said. Until I find another horse. Or a train. Thank you, Mr. Sample. Good luck, Mrs. Vance. She turned the horse. She kicked it into a walk. The mule followed, tethered to the saddle horn, dragging the prisoner toward justice. Eldridge watched them go. He watched until they were just dust motes dancing in the sunset. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the tobacco pouch. He rolled a cigarette. He lit it. He took a drag. He looked at the empty desert. It was big. It was quiet. It didn't care about gold or graves or widows. California, Eldridge said. He adjusted his hat. He turned south. He started walking. He had $500 in his belt and a good pair of boots. It was enough. The end.